Late autumn nights are cold, but the stars were bright over our open-air campsite behind the ancient city. A group of us high school seniors were celebrating the 18th birthday of our class monitor and school beauty, Lee Sitong. She looked stunning tonight. Every guy there had eyes full of that typical teenage longing. Even the ones who didn't usually have a crush on her felt their hearts racing. Except for me. I sat on a folding stool, watching her with a strange, uneasy feeling. 3 days ago, a message flashed into my mind out of nowhere. God's message 001, undercover. I had no idea what it meant. But from all the novels and shows I'd consumed over the years, I figured I was no longer a normal person. The biggest change started with Lee Sitong. Ever since that message appeared, I sensed something familiar about her. It was hard to explain. It was like one wild beast encountering another, catching a scent and realizing, yeah, she's the same kind as me. Beyond that, I had been starving for 3 days. No matter how much I ate, even until I vomited or felt like my stomach would burst, a wave of exhaustion and hunger still swept through my body. I went to the hospital, but the doctor said I was fine. I'd eaten more grilled meat tonight than anyone else, yet I barely had the energy to sit up. I was fading. I knew it had to be that message in my head, but no matter how I searched my mind, it remained just a line of text. If this kept up, my little sister would be attending my funeral in a few days. Cheers. Happy birthday to the class monitor. Always 18. The group toasted. I felt like I was going to faint. I raised my beer and took a small sip. The cold liquid felt refreshing at first, but the moment it hit my stomach, a sharp, unbearable pain flared up. It felt like someone was tearing me apart from the inside. I didn't want to make a scene, so I bolted into the darkness away from the lights. I doubled over and retched. Damn, Jiangxia. You okay? Someone yelled from the campfire. One sip and you're down? I thought you said you could drink like a fish. Back in the village, people with your tolerance have to sit at the kids' table. By the time I stumbled back, a guy named Su Kuan was standing in front of Lee Sitong, getting rejected. Sorry, Su Kuan, she said, her voice gentle. I'm not looking to date anyone right now. You're a good person, but we only have a few months until the college entrance exams. We should focus on studying. She looked perfect in her cream-colored down jacket and red scarf. Her skin was flawless, her lips glossy. She was the undisputed goddess of the school. Su Kuan looked like a wilted eggplant, but he wouldn't give up. Lee Sitong, I really like you. I let out another loud gag and turned back toward the darkness. Su Kuan took a deep breath and shot a look of pure hatred in my direction. I felt like I was dying. My tolerance wasn't this bad. It felt like I'd swallowed sulfuric acid instead of beer. After a few minutes, the pain eased. I wiped the tears from my eyes. In the hazy moonlight, someone handed me a bottle of water. I looked up. It was Lee Sitong. Thanks, I muttered. I rinsed my mouth and spat it out. Idiot. I froze. Her voice had changed. It wasn't sweet or kind anymore. It was cold and commanding, like a queen holding a whip. Under the moonlight, her face looked sharp and icy. Don't you know we can't drink alcohol? She snapped. I stared at her. She felt like a completely different person. Before I could process what she meant, she asked another question. How many days have you been hungry? My heart skipped a beat. She knew. I realized then that she had changed just like I had. She must have sensed that same kind aura from me too. 3 days, I answered weakly. No matter what I eat, I'm starving. Of course, she said, circling me with a strange look in her eyes. Normal food won't ever make us feel full. You really don't realize what's happened to you yet, do you? I knew she had the answers. I wanted to ask everything, but the words died in my throat. I remembered the message, undercover. I knew what that word meant. One wrong move, and I'd be in a bottomless abyss. Lee Sitong gave a faint smile. It's fine. You'll understand once you've had a real meal. How do I get full? I asked. I had to know. If I didn't eat soon, I wouldn't last another 2 days. She didn't give me a straight answer. Instead, she flashed a meaningful grin. Don't leave after the party ends. I watched her walk back toward the light. As soon as she stepped into the glow, she transformed back into the pure, sweet school beauty. A sense of dread washed over me. Humans fear the unknown, and right now, I was terrified. What was happening? What did undercover mean? And what kind of meal was she talking about? My life hadn't been easy lately. I was a senior at Xinghe High School. I used to have a happy family and a spunky little sister who was 6 years younger than me. But 3 years ago, a car accident broke our home. While my dad was recovering in the hospital, he hooked up with another woman. I stayed with my mom, but she was always away on business trips. I hated my father's mistress with a passion. She had a son my age who was just as unbearable as she was. I remembered my sister's 12th birthday. I had picked her up to take her out for dinner. As we were leaving the building, I overheard the mistress's son muttering under his breath. "Two idiots," he had whispered. "Ignoring a rich mom just to stick with that old hag." Those words were like a match dropped into a powder keg. I didn't think. I just lunged at him. I wasn't a fighter, but that day, I was possessed. I fought like a feral animal, using every dirty trick I knew to tear into that fat brat. I won, but the real change happened when I got home. A message flashed in my mind. God's Fragment 001, Undercover. The sheer adrenaline kept me awake all night. I felt chosen, like a god had reached down and granted me a superpower. But that word, undercover, gnawed at me. I tried everything to trigger some kind of ability, but nothing happened. The only change was the hunger. For 3 days, I ate constantly, but I remained starving. I hadn't planned on coming to Li Xidong's 18th birthday party. I was too weak to walk. But the strange, familiar aura coming from her made me think she held the answers. After what she just told me in the shadows, I knew I was right to come. The truth was close, yet I didn't feel excited. I felt a cold, creeping dread. It was the primal fear of something terrible about to happen. By 11 o'clock, the party ended. Everyone left, but I stayed behind. I hid in the darkness, just like Li Xitong told me to. The hunger was agonizing now. I couldn't even think straight. I felt like a character in a game watching my health bar tick down to 0. If I didn't eat tonight, I wouldn't make it to morning. 20 minutes later, Li Xitong appeared. "How do I get full?" I rasped. I didn't care about pleasantries. She looked at me under the faint moonlight. Her eyelashes were long, her eyes wide and shimmering. "Jiang Xia, will you be my boyfriend?" I froze. Usually, a confession from the school beauty would send my head spinning. Right now, my brain was too starved to process romance. "Tell me how to eat first," I demanded. "Promise me first," she countered with a playful, sweet smile. "Promise, and I'll let you eat your fill." "Fine," I groaned. "Fine. Anything." "Then you're mine now," she chirped. "You have to listen to me, okay? Whatever you say, just tell me how to stop the hunger." She gave a dark little giggle. "Wait here. Stay hidden. Don't come out until I tell you." She turned and walked toward the empty road. The night was silent, save for the biting wind and the rustle of dead leaves. I watched her from behind a stone wall, shivering. A moment later, a figure approached her from the upper road. It was Su Kuan, my rival. "You came," Li Xitong said, her hands in her pockets. Su Kuan looked nervous. "There were too many people earlier. I was shy." "So?" Li Xitong's face reddened slightly. "It's okay." Su Kuan licked his dry lips, his heart practically visible thumping against his chest. "You asked to meet me alone? Does that mean you're willing to be with me?" She looked down shyly. She didn't say no. I stared from the shadows, my blood boiling. Asterisk wait a damn minute. Is this really happening? Asterisk. You ask me to be your boyfriend, hide me in the dark, and then flirt with another guy right in front of me? I felt a surge of green-eyed rage. "No," Li Xitong said suddenly, looking up at him. "I can't be with you." A few minutes ago, I already accepted Jiang Xia's confession. The shock hit Su Kuan like a physical blow. He stumbled back. I felt a surge of petty satisfaction. "That's more like it." "You're with Jiang Xia?" Su Kuan's voice cracked. "You chose him?" He was shaking with fury. His goddess had rejected him for his worst enemy, and then dragged him here just to rub it in his face. "Then why did you call me back here?" he screamed. "I wanted to know how much you really liked me," she said softly. Su Kuan paused. A flicker of hope returned to his eyes. He thought this was a prank, a test. "You aren't really with him, are you?" Li Xitong smiled. She reached out and gently stroked Su Kuan's cheek. "I just want to know how much you love me." Su Kuan melted. His heart raced. He leaned into her touch. "So much. I love you so much." "Thank you," she whispered, her eyes glowing with a predatory light. Then, The world turned into a nightmare. A thick, black tentacle erupted from Lee Sidong's mouth. It moved like a whip, driving straight into Su Kuan's throat. It punched through his neck and burst out the back of his head in a spray of crimson. Su Kuan's eyes bulged. He didn't even have time to scream. My brain went numb. My pupils shrunk to pinpricks. I had sensed something was wrong, but I wasn't prepared for this. I wasn't prepared for the girl I liked to have a monster living inside her. I tried to turn and run, but my legs felt like they were made of lead. I took one step and collapsed into the dirt like a pile of wet rags. Lee Sidong didn't look at me yet. The tentacle was pulsing, making a wet, slurping sound as it drained him. Delicious, she moaned, her voice distorted and manic. So delicious. I haven't been this excited in a long time. She turned her head toward me. Her expression was pure insanity. Jiangxia, come here. Hold me. Are you freaking kidding me? I scrambled backward, my skin crawling. I tried to crawl away, but I barely made it half a meter before I saw it. A black shadow lunged through the air. The tentacle was coming for me. The tentacle lashed out, coiling around my leg like a cold, wet snake. I didn't have time to gasp before it yanked me across the pavement. My survival instincts kicked in hard. I clawed at the dirt, my fingernails digging deep into the earth, trying to find any kind of grip. Lee Sidong was incredibly strong. I felt my skin tear as my fingers dragged against the rough ground, leaving bloody streaks behind. She pulled me right to her feet. That's when I saw it. The thing that had dragged me wasn't a separate entity. It was her right hand. As soon as I was within reach, the black mass receded and shifted back into the shape of a normal human hand. Beside us, Su Kuan was still standing perfectly upright. Blood masked his entire face. It wasn't until the 3 tentacles buried in his skull pulled out with a sickening, wet pop that his body finally gave way. He slumped over like a discarded doll. The tentacle in Lee Sidong's mouth retracted, turning back into her soft, pink tongue. She licked her bloody lips, her breath coming in quick, shallow gasps. Her face was flushed deep red, looking almost post-coital. She wiped a stray blood splatter from her cheek and suddenly dropped into a crouch, grabbing me by the collar. Her eyes went cold. I told you to come here and hold me, she hissed. Why didn't you? I opened my mouth to answer, but my throat felt like it was blocked by a lead weight. Not a single word would come out. Why didn't I come over? Are you insane? Look at what you just did. Suddenly, her anger vanished. She gave me a wicked, playful smile and leaned in close. She ran her blood-stained tongue up the side of my face, from my chin to my temple. Then, she pressed her lips against my ear, her voice dropping to a seductive purr. Don't be afraid, darling, she whispered. You haven't realized what's happening to you yet, have you? That's okay. You'll know very soon. She sounded like a complete lunatic. A monster wearing a girl's skin. Let's eat first, she said, her tone switching back to casual. After dinner, I'll take you to a hotel. I know a 5-star place nearby that's great for couples. You're staying with me tonight. My gaze drifted to Su Kuan's corpse. His face was unrecognizable, his skin turning a ghastly shade of gray-green. My stomach did a violent somersault. I felt like I was going to throw up everything I've ever eaten. Lee Sidong saw my reaction and frowned. What? You don't have an appetite? She rubbed her thumb against her bloody lip and then held it out to me. Her voice was suddenly tender, like a mother coaxing a child. You're so hungry, Jiangxia. If you eat this, the hunger goes away. Just try it. Once you taste it, you'll realize how lucky you are. You won't be able to stop. She tried to force her thumb into my mouth. I jerked my head back, my eyes darting around for an escape. Up the road, I spotted a man. He looked like a security guard patrolling the ancient city area. Hope flared in my chest. I opened my mouth to scream for help, but the words died in my throat. As the guard walked toward us, a chilling sensation washed over me. It was a feeling of familiarity, the same scent I got from Lee Sidong. It was like one predator recognizing another. He was one of them. A kindred. The guard's suspicious expression softened as he got closer. He sensed us, too. He lit a cigarette, stood a few meters away, and glanced at Su Kuan's body with total indifference. Then he looked at us. Hey, you too, he grunted. Don't you know the rules? This isn't your territory. Don't just start a mess wherever you feel like it. Li Sitong stood up and gave him a sweet, apologetic smile. I'm so sorry, uncle. My boyfriend was just really hungry. The guard took a long drag of his cigarette. He eyed the fresh, mostly intact corpse on the ground. A flicker of greed crossed his face. Get out of here now, and I'll let it slide. Yes, of course. We're leaving right now, Li Sitong said. I'll leave the rest to you. She grabbed me by the collar and dragged me away. I was too weak to resist. I looked up at the night sky, which was stained a dull red by the city lights. What was happening to this world? Was I really becoming a monster like her? And what was that undercover voice in my head? To anyone passing by, we probably looked like a typical couple, a bossy girlfriend dragging her submissive boyfriend along. We reached the south gate of the ancient city. A man was standing under the stone archway, playing a folk song on a guitar. For people were standing around him, listening. As we passed, all four of them turned to look at us. I felt it again. 4 times over. That same predatory scent. They all gave us strange, knowing smiles before turning back to the music. Li Sitong didn't take me into the ancient city. She kept dragging me up the main road. A drunk young man was hailing a taxi nearby. He hopped into the back seat, shouting an address to the driver. I looked at the balding taxi driver. My blood ran cold. He was one of them, too. Kid, if you're gonna puke, tell me first so I can pull over, the driver said with a polite, eerie grin. Whatever, just drive. I'll pay for the cleaning if I do, the drunk snapped. The driver nodded, his smile turning predatory as he stepped on the gas and disappeared into the night. 500 meters later, Li Sitong pulled me into the lobby of a 5-star hotel. 2 beautiful receptionists greeted us with professional smiles. While Li Sitong checked us in, I watched a couple walking toward the elevators. They were laughing, looking deeply in love. The man was a monster. I looked around the lobby at the people sitting on the sofas. Kindred. They were everywhere. I had never been so terrified in my life. Even seeing Li Sitong transform hadn't shaken me as much as this realization. The world wasn't what I thought it was. It was a hunting ground, and I was surrounded. Sir, please scan the code to register your identity. The receptionist's voice was polite. She made a graceful gesture toward the QR code on the counter. Her smile was warm, kind, and professional. I looked at her, then at her colleague. They were the same. Both of them. Kindred. They were everywhere. Why were there so many? My mind went blank, the reality of the situation paralyzing me. Li Sitong waved a hand in front of my face. Jiangxia, come on, get your phone out and scan the code. I wanted to run. Every instinct I had told me to bolt for the door. But I had a feeling, a dark, heavy premonition. If I ran now, or if I screamed for help, Li Sitong would kill me right there. I'd end up worse than Su Kuan. And if she didn't get me, the other kindred sitting in the lobby would swarm me in seconds. I'm not used to staying in hotels, I mumbled, looking at her. Stop talking. Let's go, Li Sitong snapped. She grabbed my arm with a grip like iron. Then, she turned back to the receptionist with a shy, modest smile. Excuse me, miss? Can he come down and register his info in a little bit? It was definitely against the rules. But maybe because they recognized each other as the same species, the receptionist didn't hesitate. She nodded and smiled. Of course. Here is your room card. Would you like us to show you upstairs? No need. Sorry for the trouble, Li Sitong said. She dragged me toward the elevator. Her strength was terrifying. I suspected several grown men combined couldn't match the power in her small frame. We entered a suite. I sat on the edge of a round, birdcage-style bed. Pink ambient lights bathed the room in a soft, hazy glow. Li Sitong started taking off her clothes. She shed her down jacket, revealing a white turtleneck sweater that hugged her curves. She had just turned 18, but her body was fully developed. My back was soaked with cold sweat. My mind was racing. What exactly was she? Was she the real Li Sitong, or had a monster eaten the original girl and stolen her skin? And what about me? Am I the same thing? Li Sitong kicked off her sneakers and pulled off her red scarf. She sat on the edge of the bed and placed her toe against my chest, gently pushing me backward until I lay flat. I gripped the bedsheets tight. My head felt like it was being hit by a sledgehammer. Thump, thump, thump. It should have been a dream scenario. A beautiful classmate, a private hotel room, an intimate moment. But I felt nothing but dread. Heaven knows what kind of monster she actually was. I didn't even know if her internal anatomy was still human. She crawled over me on one knee, moving slowly toward my face. Her eyes were bedroom soft, full of a fake tenderness. Her pale hand slid down my chest, moving lower. A few seconds later, her expression turned cold. She pulled back. "You think I'm a monster," she sneered. "That's why you're not interested." "No, no," I stammered, desperate not to offend her. I've always been like this. Medical issues." She laughed, a sharp, icy sound. "I have plenty of ways to fix that. But doing it that way would make me look cheap." She reached out and stroked my cheek gently. "To be honest, I actually like you. I've liked you since back when I was still a normal human." "So what are we?" I asked, my breath heavy. "Am I really the same as you?" I didn't want to be a monster. I didn't want to hurt people. But my body's reactions told me the truth. I was one of them now. Li Sitong traced circles on my chest with her fingertip. "Anyway, you and I aren't normal humans anymore. It's hard to accept because you just started changing. You'll get used to it." I couldn't wrap my head around it. Why? Why did this happen? My mind flashed back to that weird God Sequence 001 notification. Was I some kind of undercover agent in a nest of monsters? "How many of us are there?" I asked. "A lot. You should have felt them on the way here. As for why this is happening, I can't explain it either." Her tone shifted, becoming more serious. "You should be happy, Jiangxia. If you were still a normal human, you'd be food sooner or later. Isn't it better to be the hunter than the prey?" "Then why me? Why make me your boyfriend?" "I told you. I liked you before," she said with a mysterious smile. Then her face hardened. "But more importantly, I need a partner to hunt with. I think you'll be a good choice." My heart sank. A partner to hunt with. Just like what she did to Su Kuan. "I'm full from earlier," she said, yawning. "So sleepy. I'm going to bed." She threw a leg over me, rested her head on my shoulder, and hugged me tight. She closed her eyes, leaving me alone with my thoughts. At first, I was wired. The shock and horror kept the hunger at bay. Even if Li Sitong wouldn't hurt me, I couldn't accept this world. I thought about my family. My mom, my sister, my playboy father. Were they in danger? Or were they monsters too? I didn't dare to think about it. The idea of my family being kindred made my hands shake. Eventually, the extreme fear and the gnawing hunger wore me down. My head grew heavy, and I drifted into a fitful sleep. The piercing sound of an alarm woke me the next morning. My eyes were bloodshot. Li Sitong was still pressed against my arm, looking as innocent as a white rabbit. She groaned at the noise and buried her face in my chest. Looking at her like this, she didn't look like a man-eater at all. 10 minutes later, she was in the bathroom, brushing her teeth while talking to her father on the phone. "I'm at a hotel, Dad. Just me. Don't worry. You know you can trust me." I stood by the bathroom door, my legs feeling weak. After she hung up, I asked the question that was terrifying me. "If I keep staying hungry, what happens?" "You'll lose your mind," she said casually. "You'll go on a rampage until you've eaten enough to be full. Your family would probably be the first to go." She looked at me through the mirror. "But don't worry. You won't die of starvation. Even if you don't eat for a month, you'll stay alive." My heart tightened. So if I refused to eat, I wouldn't die. I would just become a mindless beast. "So I'll start with my own family?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Not necessarily," Li Sitong replied, her tone casual. "But when that hunger hits, people related to you by blood, they become much more tempting." She dropped her towel and walked toward me. She looped her arms around my neck, pulling me close. Our noses were almost touching. I could feel the warmth of her breath against my skin. It felt like a normal, romantic moment, but her words were anything but. "Don't go public with our relationship," she whispered. "And don't act weird. Don't let people see how different we are. Live your life exactly how you did before." "Why?" "Because if you stand out, they will find you," she said, her eyes darkening. "And they will kill you." "Who are they?" I asked. She reached up, her fingers tracing the line of my jaw. "They are our family, our highest grade of food. Nothing provides us with more nourishment than they do. And to them, we are the same. Think of it as a game of hide and seek. If we find them first, they die. If they find us first, we're the ones who end up dead." She noticed my fear and softened her gaze. "Don't worry too much. There aren't many of them. Maybe 1 in 100,000. Just be careful." She stood on her tiptoes and gave me a light, lingering kiss on the forehead. "I'm going to school first," she said, pulling away. "Wait a while before you leave, so no one sees us coming out of this hotel together." The door clicked shut. I collapsed against the bathroom door, my legs finally giving out. My mind was racing. If Lee Sidong and I were monsters, then who were the people she was talking about? Hunters? In the movies, there were always people who hunted the supernatural. If I was a human soul trapped in a monster's body, did that mean I was actually on their side? Suddenly, I heard a faint, wet rustling sound. I looked down at my left hand, and my breath hitched. My skin was crawling. Starting from the fingertips, my hand was transforming. Sharp, black claws tore through my nails. My skin turned into a sickly green, covered in thick, lizard-like scales and a strange, white slime. The transformation crawled up my wrist, threatening to consume my entire arm. The hunger in my gut flared up, more intense than ever, fueling the change. My arm thickened, doubling in size until it looked like a limb belonging to a beast. My face began to itch. I scrambled to the mirror and froze. In the reflection, a monster stared back. My left eye had changed. The sclera was dark, the iris a glowing ghostly green, and the pupil was a vertical slit like a cat's. Green scales crept around the socket. It looked like a creature was hiding under my skin, trying to tear its way out. I eventually made it to school. Xingha High School, class 3-1. Lee Sidong was already there, sitting in the front row. She must have gone home to change, because she looked perfectly refreshed. I arrived just before the first period started. There were 39 students in the room, but Su Kuen's seat was empty. I sat down, feeling slightly better. On my way in, I had finished a drink Lee Sidong left on my desk. I didn't want to think about what was mixed into it, but it calmed the gnawing hunger in my stomach. I had to stay full. If I lost control, the thing inside me would break free. But then I felt it. The air in the room felt heavy. The scent of kindred was everywhere. There were more of us here. Wang Fei, the class sports representative, sat right behind me. He was tall, rich, and the son of the school's dean. He had been away for 2 weeks after his younger brother died. He had just returned today. As soon as I sat down, I felt it coming off him, that same cold, predatory aura. He felt it from me, too. Before the teacher walked in, a crumpled piece of paper landed on my desk. I opened it. "Welcome to the club," it read. I didn't reply. I tore the note into tiny pieces and stuffed them into my desk. At 8:21 a.m., our homeroom teacher, Yang Roashua, walked in. She frowned at Su Kuen's empty chair. "Lee Sidong," she said. "It was your 18th birthday yesterday. Was Su Kuen there?" Lee Sidong nodded calmly. "Yes. Why? Is something wrong? Do you know where he went after the party?" "No idea," Lee Sidong said, her voice a perfect mix of innocence and confusion. "Did something happen to him?" I watched her from across the room. I couldn't believe how well she acted. She looked like she knew nothing. I realized then that Su Kuen probably wasn't her first victim. She was too good at this. "He didn't go home last night," the teacher said, looking worried. "His family is frantic. Does anyone else know where he is?" The students looked at each other and shook their heads. One boy, Su Kuen's best friend, spoke up. "He told me he wanted to take a walk alone after the party. I haven't heard from him since." The teacher sighed and left the room. The English teacher walked in a second later. "Stand up," Lee Sidong commanded the class. "Good morning, teacher." As I sat back down, another note hit my desk. It was from Wang Fei again. "Did Su Kuen taste good?" My heart hammered against my ribs. The image of Su Kuen's mangled body flashed in my mind. I ignored it and shredded the paper. A moment later, a third note was passed down from the front. Asterisk, watch out for Wang Fei. He's dangerous. Asterisk. The handwriting was sharp and familiar. It was from Lee Sidong. The rest of the morning was a blur. I couldn't focus on anything the teachers said. What was the point of studying anymore? When the lunch bell finally rang, I tried to leave quickly, but a heavy hand landed on my shoulder. It was Wang Fei. He was smiling, looking like the same athletic, popular guy he'd always been. But my senses were sharper now. I could smell it on him, a faint, metallic scent of blood. "Hey, Jiang Xia," Wang Fei said, his grip tightening. "Let's grab lunch." "Jiang Xia, let's go eat." The room went silent. Li Sitong was standing by the podium, her hands tucked into a hand warmer. Every head in the class turned to look at us. They couldn't believe the class beauty was asking me, a nobody, to lunch. Wang Fei's smile faltered. He didn't let go of my shoulder. Wait, class monitor, did I hear that right? You're asking him? Li Sitong didn't answer him. She just stared at me. I patted Wang Fei's hand and lowered my voice. Sorry, Wang Fei. Brothers before anyone else. Usually, but I can't turn down the class monitor. No way. Wang Fei laughed, though his eyes stayed cold. Don't tell me you two have a thing going on. The classroom exploded into whispers. I didn't wait to hear them. I walked straight to Li Sitong. The classroom erupted. Aside from the people just looking for a scene, the guys who had secret crushes on Li Sitong looked like they'd swallowed glass. Their faces were a mix of shock and pure jealousy. Wang Fei, you, Li Sitong snapped. She looked genuinely flustered, her face turning a deep shade of red. She grabbed a textbook from her desk as if she were about to hurl it at him. Wang Fei didn't flinch. He just ducked behind me, laughing like a hyena. Look at that. She's blushing. You two definitely have something going on. Come on, tell us. When did it start? Wang Fei, stop talking nonsense. Li Sitong shouted, her voice trembling. There's nothing between me and Jiang Xia. I lost a bet to him, okay? I told him I'd cover his lunch for the week. I'm just going to pay for his food. The class settled down, half convinced. Between the idea of the class beauty dating a loser like me or just losing a bet, most people chose to believe the bet. Especially the guys who were in love with her. They needed that lie to survive the day. My seatmate, Yang Jia, grabbed my arm, his face a mask of agony. No, Xia, you can't do this to me. If you got a girlfriend, I'd be happy for you. I really would. But the class monitor? That hurts more than being killed. Break up. Please, break up with her. I'll pay for your lunch this month if I have to. Li Sitong glared at him. Yang Jia, don't start. I told you, there's nothing going on. I patted Yang Jia's head like he was my favorite golden retriever. Relax, son, I whispered. When I officially win her over, I'll introduce you to her friends. A few minutes later, Li Sitong and I were walking side by side across the campus toward the cafeteria. I'll be honest, feeling all those envious, hateful stares from the other guys made me feel a little smug. It was a nice distraction from the hunger. I thought you said we shouldn't let people know about our connection, I said quietly. Li Sitong's voice changed instantly. The flustered schoolgirl act vanished, replaced by that cold, dominant edge. What do you think I was doing? I just saved your life. Don't you realize that? Saved my life? You mean from Wang Fei? He's already targeted you, she said grimly. I didn't understand. Targeted me? Why? I'm not even a normal human anymore. Why would he come after me? The world is changing, Jiang Xia, she said, sounding like a teacher again. Most people call us monster seeds. To the outside world, we're all the same. But among ourselves, there are categories. Wang Fei is an outlier. We call his kind deviant demons. She glanced at me, her eyes sharp. Normal monsters like us prey on humans. But deviants? They prey on us. To someone like Wang Fei, another monster provides far more nutrients than a regular human ever could. My heart skipped a beat. She had mentioned something else earlier, divine husk awakeners. I remembered the string of information that had flashed in my mind when I first changed. The words divine husk were right at the top. It clicked. I wasn't just a monster. I was an awakener. I was a mole hidden among these creatures. The realization sent a surge of excitement through me. I wasn't a monster. I was a spy. I had to keep that secret buried deep. So you warned me because he's dangerous, I said, keeping my voice steady. But we're classmates. Doesn't even a rabbit avoid eating the grass near its own burrow? Li Sitong stopped and looked at me with a serious, almost pitying expression. Don't be naive. We aren't human anymore. Our emotions and instincts are different. You know Wang Fei has a younger brother, right? Yeah, I know him. His brother was a monster seed, too, she whispered. He died suddenly 2 weeks ago. Who do you think killed him? My pupils contracted. You mean? Wang Fei. It's just a guess, she said, shaking her head. Most of us won't touch our own families unless we're truly pushed to the edge. But Wang Fei is the most extreme case I've ever seen. To her, you're just a new, weak recruit. You're an easy meal. A cold shiver ran down my spine. I thought about Wang Fei sitting behind me in class, staring at the back of my neck like I was a steak on a plate. I realized then that the rabbit rule didn't apply here. After all, Li Sitong had killed Su Kuan just last night. These awakeners you mentioned, I asked. If this were a novel, they'd be the heroes and we'd be the villains, right? Does it matter? She replied. Right or wrong doesn't feed the hunger. We're all just trying to survive. Soon, this world is going to fall into total chaos. Our only job is to get as strong as possible before that happens. I nodded, then asked, how long have you been like this? I'll just tell you this, she smiled, leaning in close until her breath brushed my ear. When I first changed, there were very few of our kind around. And by the way, I'm a deviant demon, too. My brain went numb. My face froze. You told me Wang Fei was dangerous, but you're the same as him? Seeing my terrified expression, she let out a soft, seductive giggle. Oh, darling, don't be so scared. If I wanted to hurt you, you would have been gone last night. I actually like you. As long as you listen to me and keep me happy, I'll protect you. Looking at her twisted, obsessive expression, I had a very bad feeling. Her personality seemed even more extreme than Wang Fei's. Great news, I successfully infiltrated the enemy. Bad news, my girlfriend is a psychopathic monster. In the cafeteria, Li Sitong swiped her card for my meal and then went to sit with a friend from another class. I sat alone and shoveled food into my mouth. It didn't stop the hunger, but I ate anyway. I realized I had to be careful. If there were awakeners nearby and they saw me eating 10 meals without getting full, they'd flag me as a monster and kill me. I couldn't exactly tell them I was a mole. I looked like a monster. I could turn into a monster. Why would they believe me? At the same time, I couldn't let the monsters know I was an awakener. Li Sitong said they prepped on each other for nutrients, but an awakener? I was probably a 5-course gourmet meal to them. If my identity leaked, every monster in the city would be hunting me down. I was stuck. I wasn't human, and I wasn't one of them. I was something else entirely. Divine Husk 001. The undercover label in my head wasn't just a title. It was an ability. It allowed me to mimic the monsters perfectly, but I didn't feel like it was a gift. To stay full, I was supposed to hunt humans. But my mind was still human. I couldn't bring myself to do it. I kept eating, forcing the rice down. It tasted good, even if it was useless. It gave me a tiny bit of mental comfort. This endless hunger made me feel like I could win any eating competition in the world, as long as my stomach didn't literally burst first. The cafeteria was packed with over 2,000 students. My senses were still weak, but I realized I could detect other monsters within a 100-meter radius. I scanned the room. Including Li Sitong and Wang Fei, I counted more than 10 of them. 10 monsters in one school. If each one fed once every 2 weeks, the body count was going to get very high, very fast. The math in my head was terrifying. If there were 10 monsters in this school alone, and each fed once every 2 weeks, at least 20 people were being murdered every month. That was just one school. In a city of 10 million, I couldn't even imagine how many of us were hiding in the shadows. Li Sitong was right. The world was on the brink of collapse, held together by a thin thread of order kept by people I hadn't met yet. I needed to figure out how to get stronger. Li Sitong and the others fed on humans to evolve. Was I supposed to do the same? If that was the only way, then what was the difference between me and them? I was labeled as Divine Husk 001, an undercover agent, but right now, I didn't even know if I was a man or a ghost. If I was an awakener, I had to find a different way to grow. I also needed to find a way to stay full that didn't involve a crime scene. At 9 o'clock, the evening self-study session ended. I headed to the school gate and hopped on a bus to go see my sister. I was worried about her. But as soon as I sat down, my heart skipped a beat. Wang Fei stepped onto the bus right behind me. This wasn't his route home. He sat directly behind me, his expression blank. A cold sweat broke out across my back. My skin crawled. I wasn't a coward, but the thought of him following me to a quiet corner to eat me made every hair on my body stand on end. I forced myself to think. Li Sitong said monsters don't expose themselves in public. I was safe on the bus, but what happened when I stepped off? Sitting still was suicide. Fighting him was a death sentence. I decided to run. Just as the doors were about to close, I lunged to get up. A heavy, powerful hand slammed onto my shoulder, pinning me back into my seat. Wang Fei leaned in, his breath hot against my ear. "Don't move," he whispered. "There's a hunter on the bus." My eyes widened. A hunter? An awakener? Was he following me because of them? Awakeners provided far more nutrients to monsters than normal humans ever could. I wondered if he meant me, but my phone buzzed in my pocket. At Xinghe High, day students could have phones, though the class monitor usually kept them during school hours. It was a text from Wang Fei. "Wang Fei, you're being watched by that hunter." "Me who? Where?" "Wang Fei, front of the bus. The woman with the bag of oranges at her feet." I glanced up quickly. She looked like a typical housewife in her 30s, wearing a pink dress and a cream-colored coat. She looked gentle, almost motherly. Not a killer. "Wang Fei, hunters are better at hiding than we are. If she looked like a threat, she'd be dead already." "Me? How do you know it's her?" "Wang Fei, I saw her 2 weeks ago. She killed one of our kind in a dark alley and vanished. When I saw her follow you onto the bus, I followed her." "Me, what's your plan? To eat her?" Wang Fei sent back a sweating emoji. "Wang Fei, idiot. I'm helping you. What if she's not here by accident? What if she's marked you?" I stared at the screen, my thumbs hovering over the keys. "Me helping me? Since when are you so kind?" "Wang Fei, why does everyone think I'm the bad guy? Did Li Sidong talk trash about me?" Before I could reply, another message popped up. "Wang Fei, stay away from her. She's a justice demon. Do you even know what that is?" "Me, I know. She told me. But aren't you one too?" "Wang Fei, yeah, I am. But I'm not like her. I don't kill my own kind. I'd rather cooperate to hunt humans or hunters." "She's a lunatic. Didn't you notice how she acts when you're alone? She's a psycho." I thought back to my time with Li Sidong. He was right. She was definitely off. "Wang Fei, she's only close to you so she can farm you. The stronger you get, the more nutrients you provide. She's waiting for you to grow so she can consume you and evolve." "Me evolve?" "Wang Fei, once we absorb enough nutrients, we evolve. Our bodies and abilities reach a higher state. We get stronger." I went quiet, thinking. Then I typed back. "Me, tell me your real motive. You didn't get on this bus for her body, and you didn't get on to help me." "Wang Fei, fine. I wanted to see where she lives so I can strike later." I hesitated, then took a gamble. "Me, Li Sidong said if I die, no matter who does it, she'll kill you to bury with me." I was betting that Li Sidong was stronger than him and that he feared her. She'd been a monster longer than most, after all. "Wang Fei, is that a threat?" "Me, it's a reminder. If you think I'm an easy target, try it. Even if I die, I'll take a piece of you with me. Don't treat me like a helpless newbie." Wang Fei didn't reply for a long time. The bus approached the next stop. "Wang Fei, you're so sure I'm going to attack you?" "Me, because you're lying. If there was really a hunter, you wouldn't tell me. You'd be afraid I'd tell Li Sidong and she'd steal your kill. You're just trying to keep me calm. If you don't get off at the next stop, I'll assume you're trying to eat me. I'll scream, I'll grab you, and I'll expose us both right here." "Wang Fei, you wouldn't dare." "Me, try me. I can't beat you, so dying together is my best option." My heart was pounding in my throat. I had messaged Li Sidong for help, but she hadn't replied. If Wang Fei stayed on, I was out of moves. The bus hissed to a stop. The doors folded open. To my immense relief, Wang Fei stood up and followed the crowd out. He looked frustrated, like a predator who had just watched a fat meal walk away. He was angry, but he didn't dare gamble. Li Sidong was a maniac, the most ruthless monster he'd ever met, and he wasn't ready to find out if my threat was real. My heart skipped a beat. Before I could even think about resisting, a pair of arms wrapped tightly around me from behind. "Sweetie," a voice whispered. "Did you miss me that much? You followed me all the way here." I spun around and saw Li Sidong. I let out a long breath, my body finally relaxing. But confusion took over immediately. I asked her what she was doing here. "Why wouldn't I be here?" she replied, pointing to a villa on our left. "My dad owns that house." She smiled and hooked her arms around my neck, pulling me close. "What about you? Why are you here?" I stuttered, trying to come up with an excuse. I told her I was just wandering around. "Wandering? All the way out here?" Her voice turned sultry, but her eyes were sharp. "Let me guess why you're really here. You're looking for your sister, aren't you?" My stomach dropped. A cold chill ran down my spine. How did she know? Was she stalking me? Or did she have some kind of design on my sister? I swallowed hard, my voice trembling as I asked if she knew where my sister lived. Li Sitong's expression went cold instantly. A flash of murderous intent crossed her eyes, and her tone turned icy. So I was right. You're here for another woman. Not for me. I froze. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. No. That's my sister. My actual sister. Are you seriously jealous of her? I looked at her unhappy face and realized she was a complete psycho. She was a yandere, a total freak whose personality had warped far beyond anything human. I was terrified that her jealousy might put my sister in danger, so I started lying as fast as I could. I told her I had actually come looking for her first, but since she didn't reply to my messages, I just started walking. I claimed I only decided to check on my sister because I happened to be in the neighborhood. Then I looked her in the eyes and told her that meeting her here must be fate, that we were a match made in heaven. It worked. Li Sitong's face lit up, and her eyes crinkled into crescents. I really am starting to like you more and more, she chirped. She stood on her tiptoes and gave me a soft peck on the forehead. I had managed to calm my girlfriend down, but I wasn't happy. Dealing with her was like handling live high-voltage wires. I asked her what she was doing here instead of being at home, praying she wasn't here because of my sister. Come inside, she said, grabbing my hand and pulling me toward her villa. The interior was just as lavish as the apartment where I'd seen the monster woman before. It had high ceilings, a spiral staircase, and massive crystal chandeliers. Every corner screamed wealth. I knew she was rich, but this was next level. She had a multi-million-dollar luxury apartment in the city and a private villa here. I muttered something about her family being loaded. If the world hadn't turned into a nightmare, and if Li Sitong were normal, I would have hit the jackpot. With a girlfriend this rich and beautiful, I'd be set for life. But there were no ifs. In a normal world, someone from my social class wouldn't even be able to talk to her. At best, I could have had a brief, shallow high school romance based on my looks. My dad uses this place to keep his mistresses, she said bluntly. I didn't expect her to talk about her father like that. Whenever he gets a new one, he moves them in here. My dad isn't actually that capable. He's just a spoiled rich kid living off my grandfather's money. I changed the subject, asking why she hadn't replied when I messaged her for help against Wang Fei. I asked if she just didn't see it. I saw it, she said without hesitation. I just didn't want to reply. I felt like a pathetic loser for a second, but she kept talking. She told me she understood I couldn't beat Wang Fei in a fight, but she believed I was smart enough to lose him on a bus. She said if I wanted to grow, I couldn't rely on her for everything. I didn't argue because she was right. Handling Wang Fei on my own tonight was a good thing. In this dying world, I needed to grow fast. Survival wasn't just about raw strength, it was about mindset. Solving this crisis alone made me much more stable for the next one. Li Sitong led me up the spiral staircase. Come on, she said. I'll show you something fun. We went into a second-floor bedroom, but the fun wasn't what I expected. She pointed to a computer monitor showing a live surveillance feed of another villa's living room. A sexy woman in a red dress was sitting on a sofa, twirling her hair and flirting with a young man with dyed yellow hair. The tension between them was obvious. Your idea of fun is spying on people? I asked. Men love watching this stuff, don't they? She teased. This is a live broadcast. You can't see this even with a VIP membership. I looked at the screen. I had to admit, the woman's body was incredible. I asked how she even got a camera into the house across the street. That villa belongs to my dad, too, she said casually. He keeps another mistress there. She hooked up with him 3 months ago. I was stunned. 2 villas in the same neighborhood just for mistresses? The lifestyle of the rich was exhausting just to think about. I made a joke about her father's stamina, but then I realized something was wrong. If that woman was her father's mistress, who was the guy she was flirting with? Was her father getting cheated on? Li Sitong stared at the screen, her face expressionless. For the past month, she's brought a different man home every 3 days. And every time, the man disappears by morning. I understood immediately. The woman was a monster, one of us. It also explained how Li Sitong knew where my sister lived. She'd been watching this neighborhood for a while. Li Sitong smiled, a cold glint in her eyes. I don't know if I should praise her for being brave or call her stupid for hunting in the same spot so many times. Tonight, Her luck runs out. You're going to kill her? I asked. I realized eat her was probably more accurate. Li Sitong was an ethereal demon. To her, other monsters were just high-protein snacks. She's doing this in my father's house, so she has to pay, Li Sitong said. Besides, my dad visits her. If she gets too hungry, she might turn on him. I looked back at the monitor. If you want her dead, why the cameras? Why not just go over there? Because I suspect she's a lust demon, she explained. Lust demons were like the succubi from old movies. Most were women, though a few were men. They didn't get their energy from eating flesh in the traditional way. Instead, they absorbed essence through physical intimacy. As she said this, I noticed Li Sitong's face turning red. At first, I thought she was actually blushing. I thought the crazy woman was actually blushing from shame. I was wrong. As I watched her, I realized that wasn't a look of embarrassment. It was pure, unadulterated excitement. She was getting off on this. Her voyeuristic streak was deeper than I imagined, and it made me realize I truly didn't know how twisted Li Sitong really was. Every time I thought I'd seen her limit, she found a new way to reset my expectations. Who said I have a peeping habit? She whispered, her eyes glued to the screen. I've just never seen a lust demon feed before. If we want to survive in this world, our enemies aren't just the awakeners among the humans. Our own kind are just as dangerous. Understanding every species increases our odds of survival. She sounded logical, but her body betrayed her. Her frame was trembling with anticipation. I nodded, trying to hide my own nerves. I didn't want to see whatever disgusting thing was about to happen, but she was right. Knowledge was survival. On the monitor, the atmosphere in the room across the street turned heavy. The woman climbed onto the man's lap. The scene was sexually charged, the air thick with pheromones. I felt Li Sitong's grip on my hand tighten. She wasn't excited by the intimacy, though. She was reacting to the change. The feeding had begun. The woman's fingers curled and lengthened. Her skin turned a bruised, deep cyan in seconds. Her hair seemed to retract into her skull, only to be replaced by wet, seaweed-like strands erupting from her scalp. Her spine began to heave and pulse as if something was trying to claw its way out from inside her. Then, jagged cyan bone spurs ripped through her back. A low, haunting sound filled the room, a warbling cry like a pod of deep-sea fish. She looked like a nightmare dragged up from the Mariana Trench. Li Sitong clicked the mouse, switching to the front-facing camera. The woman's face was gone. In its place was a bulbous fish head. Two eyes, each the size of a fist, leaked a thick, white slime. Her jaw unhinged, revealing rows of needle-like white teeth that slanted backward toward her throat like a meat grinder. The young man didn't even have time to scream. The fish monster opened its maw full 180 degrees and clamped down, swallowing half the man's head in one go. The internal rows of teeth began to rotate. The sound of grinding bone echoed through the speakers, a horrific screech like fingernails on a chalkboard. I felt my stomach flip. Blood sprayed from the monster's mouth, drenching the man's body. He struggled, his limbs jerking violently, but he was pinned to the sofa by a strength that made escape impossible. This was 100 times more brutal than what Li Sitong had done to Su Kun. I let out a dry heave, my face turning green. I didn't want to look weak in front of her, but I couldn't help it. Then again, why was I comparing myself to her? She was a psychopath. I was new to this. It was normal to feel sick. Still, seeing it through a screen was better than seeing it in person. It wasn't quite as traumatic as the night Li Sitong's tongue tentacle pierced Su Kun's throat. But knowing this was happening less than 30 meters away made my skin crawl. A chill ran from my heels to the top of my head. Li Sitong remained transfixed, her eyes bright with a predatory glow. After 2 minutes, she reached into the keyboard drawer and pulled out a military dagger. She slid it across the desk toward me and flashed a wicked smile. Go, she said. Kill her. I stared at the dagger, then back at the fish-headed monster on the screen. Me? I pointed at my chest. I couldn't believe her confidence in me. This felt like a suicide mission. You go in through the front door, Li Sitong explained, standing up. Distract her. I'll climb through the back window and take her from behind. Are you hearing yourself? I whispered. You overestimate me. With my current strength, I won't last a second. Besides, I'm starving. I don't have the energy for this. I waved my hands, trying to back out. This wasn't the time to act like a hero. Relax, she said coolly. She isn't that strong. She won't kill you instantly. I just need a distraction so we don't make too much noise. I want to end this quickly and quietly. More importantly, you need the practice. I think we should talk about this some more, I countered. I knew I'd have to fight eventually, but not like this. Not 5 minutes after arriving. I just came here to check on my sister. Li Sitong's eyes narrowed into icy slits. You don't trust me? It's not that, I stammered. I'm just not ready. You'll never be ready if you keep hesitating. You won't grow this way. She didn't give me a choice. She pushed me out of the bedroom, her mixture of threats and persuasion ringing in my ears. Before I knew it, I was standing outside the villa with a 7-inch blade in my hand. I didn't want to do it, but she'd made me a promise. If I helped her, she'd tell me a way to keep my family safe. That was the hook. I couldn't guarantee my mother and sister's safety in this new world on my own. She'd given me the door code, so I didn't have to break in. I knew the beep of the keypad would give me away, but that was the point. I was the bait. I just hoped she wouldn't leave me hanging. I still didn't even know how to trigger my transformation. I reached the front door and took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing heart. It didn't work. My pulse hammered against my ribs, louder than ever. I could feel my heart slamming against my ribs. It was a violent, frantic thudding that made my chest ache. I forced my trembling fingers to punch in the code. Click. The heavy door of the villa swung open. My heart skipped a beat, then two. I felt like I was about to explode from the sheer tension. I'd spent the last few minutes forcing myself to be brave, acting on pure adrenaline. But the moment that door creaked open, regret washed over me like ice water. What was I doing? I was a monster, sure, but I was out of my league. Why did I listen to that crazy woman Li Sitong? Inside the villa, I heard a wet, tearing sound, the sound of flesh being ripped apart. I backed away. Maybe it wasn't too late to run. I didn't want to go in there. Swish. The choice was taken from me. 3 slimy, seaweed-like tentacles lashed out from the gap in the door. They moved too fast to dodge. Before I could even gasp, they wrapped tightly around my ankles. With a violent jerk, I was yanked off my feet. My body slammed through the doorway, and I was dragged onto the floor inside. Holy crap! My head spun. I remembered the military dagger in my hand and tried to slash at the vines, but the tentacles suddenly let go on their own. Then I saw it. A fish-headed monster was crawling toward me at a terrifying speed. Its spine buckled and twisted with every movement, making a low, humming sound like a school of deep-sea fish. All I could focus on were its eyes, 2 massive, bulging orbs that took up half its face. I froze. My mind went totally blank. But the raw instinct to survive took over. I scrambled backward on my hands and knees, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The fish monster kept coming, closing the gap in seconds. I looked around desperately for Li Sitong. She was supposed to be my backup. She was supposed to save me. But the monster's gray, clammy hand gripped my calf, and she was nowhere to be found. A jolt went through me like an electric shock. My vision turned red. My blood boiled. To hell with it. I was dead anyway, so I might as well go down swinging. Damn it, I screamed. I lunged forward and drove the military dagger straight into one of those giant fish eyes. There was a wet pop. Dark green fluid exploded out, spraying across my face. The monster stopped instantly. Its massive head slumped to the floor. I stared at it, panting, my eyes wide with confusion. Was that it? One stab, and it was over? I expected a life-or-death struggle, a bloody brawl. This felt too easy. Suddenly, the fish's mouth unhinged. A black, octopus-like creature shot out of its throat. Before I could blink, it latched onto my face. I let out a muffled shriek. I grabbed 2 of its tentacles, my fingernails sinking into soft, slimy flesh. I pulled with everything I had, but it wouldn't budge. It felt like thousands of tiny suction cups were anchoring it to my skin. Even worse, the thing was trying to force its way into my mouth. It wanted inside me. I pulled harder, my muscles screaming. My face felt like it was being peeled off. I could feel my skin deforming under the pressure. The sensation was disgusting, wet, oily, and suffocating. Finally, with one last desperate heave, I tore it off. I didn't give it a chance to recover. My eyes were bloodshot, my vision swimming. I squeezed the creature with both hands, digging my nails deep into its body. I gritted my teeth and ripped it apart like a piece of raw meat. Black fluid hissed as it splattered the floor. I kept tearing until it was just a pile of shredded, motionless flesh in my hands. I sat there on the floor, gasping for air, my chest heaving. I threw the scraps of meat away in disgust. I was trembling. Then, I felt a faint, warm current flowing through my body. It was a strange, soothing sensation that started to calm my racing heart. I looked back down at the fish monster. Now that the panic was fading, I noticed something I'd missed. Its legs had been hacked off. There were several deep holes in its back, oozing thick, asphalt-colored blood. I hadn't done that. Someone else had. Lee Sidong. I whispered, looking around. My gaze stopped at the corner of the living room. My pupils shrunk. Standing there was a tall figure wrapped entirely in black. Black boots, black tactical pants, a black jacket. A hood was pulled over a baseball cap, and a black mask covered their face. It looked like a woman. The only things visible were her sharp, piercing eyes and the hand holding a weapon. In her left hand, she held a blue-tinted scimitar. It was over 4 feet long, curved perfectly for killing. A hunter. My breath hitched. The living room was deathly silent, except for the faint ticking of a wall clock. The air smelled like rusted iron. The expensive wool rug was soaked in that black, tar-like blood. On the sofa nearby, I saw the body of a young man, the victim. He was unrecognizable, a bloody mess of torn flesh. The hunter spoke. Her voice was cold and steady, just as I'd expected. You're one of them, too? 2 minutes earlier, while I was being shoved out of the villa, Lee Sitong had already slipped back to her monitoring room. She'd been planning this for a while. 2 days ago, she'd planted a parasitic membrane inside that fishwoman. It was a slow-growing trap that other monsters couldn't detect. She hadn't planned on killing the woman yet. She wanted to wait a few months for the woman to evolve before harvesting her. But when I showed up, she changed her mind. She wanted to see me fight. She wanted to see the carnage. She'd lied to me. She never intended to help. She just wanted to watch the show on her monitors, ready to trigger the parasite only if I was about to die. But as she turned to the screens, she'd frozen. A figure in black had picked the lock on the back door. They moved like a ghost, silent as a breeze. They'd drawn that glowing blue blade and crept up behind the fishwoman while she was busy eating the man on the sofa. The fishwoman never saw it coming. The hunter drove the scimitar straight through her back, piercing her heart and pinning her to the sofa. Then, the hunter gripped the hilt with both hands and gave it a violent, bone-crushing twist. The fish-headed woman threw her head back, her massive, bloody maw stretching wide. A sound like a dying dolphin tore from her throat, a high-pitched, warbling scream of pure agony. The hunter didn't flinch. She planted her boot firmly into the monster's back and ripped the scimitar free. Blood from both the victim and the monster coated the blade, but it didn't stick. It slid off like oil on water, leaving the steel gleaming and untainted. This weapon wasn't normal. It was built to kill, and it hated blood. The fishwoman wasn't dead yet. Even with a hole through her chest, she knew she was outmatched. She scrambled to her feet, desperate to bolt, but the hunter was faster. A clean, horizontal flash of steel severed the monster's legs at the knees. The creature's upper torso slammed into the floor. The hunter drove the blade down again, straight through her spine. I heard the sickening crunch of bone and the wet tear of flesh. Just as the hunter raised her blade for the killing blow, the decapitation, the front door chimes echoed through the villa. The sound of the keypad being unlocked startled the hunter. She yanked her blade back and spun toward the exit, ready to flee. But the dying fishwoman saw her chance. Sensing a fellow monster at the door, she used her last bit of strength. The seaweed-like tentacles on her head lashed out, grabbing me and dragging me into the room. I didn't hesitate. I slammed my military dagger into her body, but she was already gone. My blade wasn't what killed her. Inside, her organs had been flash-frozen by the hunter's icy energy. The parasitic membrane Lee Sidong had planted felt the cold and tried to jump ship, lunging toward me. I didn't give it a chance. I caught the parasite midair and tore it to shreds with my bare hands. Back in the monitoring room, Lee Sidong watched this. She didn't care about the lost parasite. She was worried about me. Based on the hunter's movements, Lee Sidong knew her own success rate in a fair fight would be less than 60%. If the hunter decided to kill me now, Lee Sidong couldn't get there fast enough to save her boyfriend. Then I did something she didn't expect. I looked at the woman and gasped out the word, "Hunter." The woman froze. She stared at me, her eyes narrowing. She seemed to think I was one of them, a fellow hunter. The irony hit me like a truck. I thought I was dead meat, but she thought I was a comrade. Wait, technically, I was an awakened hunter. It was just that my power made me look exactly like a monster. Monsters can sense each other, but hunters can't. She was uncertain. She was testing the air. If I wanted to survive, I had to play the part. I had to convince her I was on her side. I nodded to her, but I didn't dare stand up yet. The smell of blood in the air was overwhelming. My stomach growled, a predatory hunger clawing at my insides. I felt a familiar itch at the base of my spine. "Please," I prayed, "don't let a tail sprout out now. Not now, asterisk. If I died here because a hunter mistook me for a monster, it would be the most pathetic death in history." The woman stayed alert. She moved cautiously, circling around me to lock the villa door. When she turned back, I was standing, clutching my dagger. We stared each other down. My eyes kept darting to her blade. The blue glow was beautiful, but the frost coming off it chilled the room from meters away. "What are you doing here?" she asked. Her voice sounded young, maybe not much older than me. I looked at the mangled fish head on the floor. "Killing," I said firmly. "Killing her." She didn't lower her weapon. "Then why no mask? Why no disguise? Aren't you afraid of being exposed? And how did you know the passcode to this villa?" Cold sweat rolled down my back. My heart hammered against my ribs. Where was Lee Sidong? This wasn't the plan. This hunter had appeared out of nowhere. I hadn't seen her on the monitors just minutes ago. "I asked you a question," the woman snapped. "Why no mask?" I rubbed my face, trying to look annoyed. I had one. It got ripped off when that thing dragged me through the door. She didn't look convinced. She reached into her pocket and tossed a small glass vial at me. It contained a clear, colorless liquid. "Drink it," she commanded. I caught it, sniffing the edge. It was high-proof alcohol. Pure spirits. "What is this for?" I asked, playing dumb while praying for a miracle. "Drink," she repeated. "I'm not taking chances." Most monsters lose their human disguise the second they hit high-proof liquor. If you want to live in this world, you have to prove you aren't a seed of corruption. She was smart. She didn't trust anyone. She leveled the tip of her scimitar at my throat, her message clear: prove it or die. I looked at the bottle. I can't even handle a beer without getting a buzz. If I down this, I'd transform instantly. But if I refused, she'd cut my head off. I was trapped. "Lee Sidong, you better be coming," I thought, my heart sinking. I couldn't sense her nearby. Had she abandoned me? "If you're allergic, I'll take you to a hospital," the woman said, stepping forward to block my only exit. "If you don't drink, your head hits the floor in 10 seconds. I realized then that she wasn't going to let me walk away. I had to take the gamble. I unscrewed the cap. The sharp, stinging scent of alcohol hit my nerves. If I turned into a monster, I'd be stronger. I might be able to break out of here. I didn't need to kill her. I just needed to run. Neither of us wanted to be caught by the police in this mess. I tipped the bottle back, bracing for the burn of acid in my throat. Half a second before the liquid touched my lips, the lights slammed off. The villa plunged into total darkness. In the shadows, I felt it. A familiar, monstrous presence was moving toward us at terrifying speed. The sound of a blade slicing through the air tore through the silence. Blue light cut through the darkness in graceful, lethal arcs. The strikes were so fast that the glowing trails blurred together, looking like a blue flower blooming in the middle of the pitch-black room. "Lee Sidong." I felt a massive surge of relief. I scrambled backward, my heart hammering against my ribs. It was a terrifyingly close call, and in my head, I was thanking every single one of Lee Sidong's ancestors for her perfect timing. As my eyes adjusted to the dark, I realized they were changing again. The shadows peeled away, and suddenly, I could see everything as clearly as if I were wearing high-end night vision goggles. I saw the tentacles. Dozens of them were whipping through the air, creating a constant, rhythmic whistling sound. They all led back to a single source in the corner of the villa, a humanoid monster. 3 tentacles tipped with ice-cold, needle-sharp points grew from its mouth. Its arms had transformed into 2 massive blade-like appendages, and 2 more tentacles sprouted from its back. The hunter's night vision clearly wasn't as good as a monster's. She was struggling to keep up with the sheer number of limbs attacking her in the dark. A loud crash echoed through the room. One of the tentacles caught her across the waist, slamming her into the massive fish tank. The glass shattered, sending a wave of water and jagged shards across the floor. The hunter was soaked. She rolled across the glass-covered ground, dodging tentacles that stabbed at her from every direction. She didn't do some fancy action movie flip to get up. Instead, she kept rolling, searching for an opening until she could finally drop to one knee. Her scimitar spun in her hand, parrying the strikes as she slowly fought her way back to her feet in a series of calculated moves. Her swordsmanship was incredible. Even as I watched in awe, I felt a chill. If Lee Sidong hadn't shown up, I wouldn't have stood a chance. Even if I had drunk that liquor and transformed, that woman would have cut me to pieces before I could blink. "Help me!" The hunter screamed at me. I didn't move. If I was going to help anyone, it was going to be Lee Sidong. I liked the idea of being the hero, the protagonist of some anime who saves the world, but that was just a fantasy. I knew the reality. If Lee Sidong won, I lived. If the hunter won, I was a dead man. There was no way I could explain my way out of being a monster. Realizing she was outmatched, the hunter began to retreat toward the villa door. She took several heavy hits to the body, using the momentum to throw herself outside and vanish into the night. The tentacles froze midair. Lee Sidong didn't chase her. A few seconds later, the limbs retracted with a wet, sliding sound. She got away. Lee Sidong's voice drifted through the dark. She sounded frustrated, her tone laced with a hint of genuine anger. She hated losing her prey. "Close the door," she commanded. I did as I was told. As soon as the door clicked shut, the lights flickered back on. Lee Sidong stood in the center of the living room, hungrily licking the hunter's blood off her hands. She was breathing heavily, looking like a starving predator that had finally tasted fresh meat. Her eyes were filled with a terrifying, twisted satisfaction. "Exquisite," she whispered. "Nothing compares to the blood of a hunter." Her crazed expression made me stay back. I was honestly afraid she might turn on me next just to satisfy her hunger. "What about the hunter?" I asked, my voice dry. My heart was still thumping. "She knows who I am now. Won't that be a problem?" Lee Sidong looked at me, her gaze uncertain. "It depends on if she marks you. But she's badly hurt. She won't be making a move anytime soon." She walked over and snatched the bottle of high-proof liquor from my hand. She sniffed the sharp, stinging scent and held it up to the light. She was smart. She knew she couldn't trust anyone completely. "Throw it away," I said, covering my nose. "It smells disgusting." "Throw it away? What a waste." Lee Sidong looked at me with a mischievous, wicked smirk. I blinked, looking from the bottle to her face. I had a very bad feeling about that look. I just remembered, I'm a student. "I should probably go," I said, turning to run. She was faster. She hooked an arm around my neck, pulling me back. "Honey, I'm your girlfriend," she cooed. "Your official, loving girlfriend. You shouldn't treat me like this. Let go. You're suffocating me." I struggled against her grip. "Just one sip," she whispered. "Just one. Do you even hear yourself?" I tried to pry her hand off, but she was like iron. I looked at the bottle being pressed toward my face, and I could only think of those old stories where a treacherous wife forces poison down her husband's throat. This stuff is pure alcohol. It'll kill me. "Baby, just one sip. I'll drink some, then you drink some. How about that?" "No." Lee Sidong pouted, looking genuinely annoyed. "You see those couples on the street? The boyfriends always drink what their girlfriends give them. Why are you being so difficult?" I grabbed her hand and looked her in the eye. "Listen to me. Let's stop hurting each other. Put the bottle down, and I'll buy you milk tea. The one with the extra-large pearls." She snorted. "That woman told you to drink, and you were going to do it. I tell you to drink, and you refuse. Am I not as good as her?" I stared at her, stunned. "You're seriously comparing yourself to her right now? Why not? We're both women, and I'm the one you're dating. You listen to her, but not me." When she threw these little tantrums, she actually acted like a normal, moody girlfriend. But I knew better. "I know what you're doing," I said, cutting through the act. You want to see what I look like when I transform? She laughed. I love how sharp you are. Don't tell me you aren't curious too. I was. I really was. But I didn't like the idea of being forced. Is there no other way? You're the type who can't control your transformation yet, Li Sitong explained, her voice turning serious. You need to complete a full, forced mutation at least once. After that, you'll be able to change at will. I looked at the bottle. If that was true, I didn't really have a choice. Besides, she continued, you have to drink this. Not just now, but often. You need to build a tolerance so your body can handle the surge of energy alcohol gives us. You don't want to be a slave to your instincts every time you catch a whiff of a drink, do you? She had a point. I reached for the bottle, but then hesitated. Not here. If that hunter brings reinforcements, we're trapped. She won't come back tonight, Li Sitong said, though she glanced at the door. But fine, let's move. She looked down at the woman on the floor, the fish-headed monster who had reverted back to her human form, her face ruined where I had stabbed her. Damned hunters, Li Sitong muttered under her breath. My appetite is finally starting to kick in, Li Sitong said, looking at the corpse on the floor. Then take your time and enjoy, I replied, turning toward the door. I'll wait for you outside. The dead monster on the floor was a feast to her, a windfall of energy. I couldn't watch. My stomach turned at the thought, and I still wasn't ready to witness that kind of scene. No need, she said, surprising me. Let's go together. I have no interest in leftovers from someone else's hunt. I prefer to do the hunting myself. I scratched my itchy eye socket. I didn't realize she was such a picky eater. What about this place? Are we just leaving it like this? I glanced around the living room. It was a blood-soaked nightmare. Leaving two bodies here seemed like a one-way ticket to a life sentence. Don't worry about it, she said dismissively. Someone will handle it. The authorities are doing everything they can to maintain the illusion of order right now. She walked toward the exit, her heels clicking on the hardwood. They'll probably claim it was a home invasion. Or maybe a domestic dispute. A boyfriend kills his girlfriend and then takes his own life. The usual cover stories. Won't they trace it back to us? I asked, following her out. I already destroyed the nearby security cameras. Besides, I don't think they have enough manpower to track us down right now. And she trailed off. And what? Nothing. I looked at her, a realization hitting me. Is it because there are people like us inside those departments? She nodded, confirming my suspicion. I felt a chill run down my spine. The world I knew was full of holes, crumbling from the inside out. We returned to the villa across the street for a few minutes before leaving the complex separately to avoid suspicion. But Li Sitong didn't let me go home. She dragged me back to the same love hotel we had stayed at the night before. Same room, same dim, atmospheric lighting, same birdcage-shaped bed. The vending machine by the bedside was still stocked with expensive, flashy adult toys. But tonight, I wasn't paralyzed by fear. I was starting to accept this twisted new reality. Li Sitong went into the bathroom to wash her hands. Her voice drifted out over the sound of running water. The longer this goes on, the more people will die. No matter how hard the authorities try to hide it, the truth will eventually break out. Governments are already building secret safe zones. Once those are finished, they'll stop playing nice and tear off the mask. We have to get stronger, Jiangxia. Immediately, her voice turned heavy. I nodded, thinking about the news I'd seen online. Food prices had been skyrocketing for 2 years. Now I understood why. Nations were stockpiling resources for the coming collapse. How do we get stronger? I asked. She stepped out of the bathroom, her face damp and glowing. From what I know about awakeners, the most direct way for them to grow is by killing us. But it has to be done using their special abilities. That's how they absorb the energy. My heart skipped a beat. It was exactly like a video game. Killing mobs to level up. When I had torn that small monster apart earlier, I'd felt a warm current flowing through my cells. I could feel my physical strength peaking. It meant I was just like the awakeners. I grew by killing monsters. I wondered if I would eventually evolve into something even more powerful if I killed enough of them. My God's Eye ability was a massive advantage. I could sense my own kind. I didn't have to play hide and seek like the other hunters. I could find my targets with surgical precision. One more question, I said. If hunters are looking for us, couldn't they just capture one of our kind and force them to point out others? Li Sitong smiled thinly. They already have. The authorities have captured many of our kind and used them as markers to identify others. It's unavoidable, but we don't hide to stay away from the government. We hide to avoid the rogue hunters. They aren't with the government. Some are, she explained. But most work alone or in small groups. In this climate, any hunter with a brain won't trust anyone. Think about it. If you were a hunter and you knew the government was infiltrated by monsters, would you reveal your identity to join them? I nodded. In this world, hunters were rarer than 1 in 100,000. Their lives were arguably more dangerous than ours. If a hunter's identity was exposed, monsters would swarm them from every direction to feast on their power. For a second, I felt sorry for them. Then it hit me. Wait. I'm an awakener too. As a mole hidden among monsters, I was probably in more danger than anyone else on the planet. Li Sitong walked across the soft carpet with bare feet. She didn't open the cheap liquor from earlier. Instead, she poured 2 glasses of expensive imported spirits she'd ordered from the front desk. She sat on my lap, her slender, fit body light against me. She handed me a glass. You aren't alone in this, are you? I asked. You have an organization. I do, she smiled. When the time is right, I'll bring you in. I promise the people there will open your eyes. She clinked her glass against mine. Cheers. I took a deep breath and downed the liquid in one go. The amber liquid hit my throat, and I immediately realized I had underestimated it. This wasn't a drink, it was liquid fire. It felt like I had swallowed a glowing coal. It burned a path down my esophagus and settled in my stomach like a heavy, white-hot weight. The temperature kept rising. I couldn't take it. It felt like a fire dragon was trying to claw its way out of my chest. I shoved Li Sitong off my lap and bolted for the bathroom. I collapsed over the toilet, retching. Hot sweat poured off me. My ears rang with a deafening buzz. It felt like 10,000 needles were stabbing into my nerves. I felt like I was standing at death's door, my consciousness slipping away. My vision blurred, covered by a strange, flickering film. Something in my blood was being ignited by the alcohol. My muscles began to throb and bulge violently. I gripped the edge of the porcelain toilet for support. With just a slight squeeze of my hand, the heavy porcelain snapped off like it was made of soft tofu. The ringing in my ears lasted for an eternity. The burning in my gut forced a scream from my throat. I lunged for the sink, turning the cold water on full blast and gulping it down, trying to extinguish the fire in my stomach. I splashed water on my face and panted for several minutes until the agony finally began to recede. I never wanted to feel that kind of pain again. As my vision cleared, I looked into the mirror and froze. The skin on my face had turned a pale, sickly green. My features had shifted, becoming sharper, more predatory, though I could still recognize my own reflection. I wasn't just a student anymore. I was something else entirely. I stared into the bathroom mirror, and my breath hitched. My eyes had turned a ghostly, glowing green, the pupils narrowing into sharp, vertical slits rimmed with a bloody red. Fine, emerald scales rippled across my eye sockets in perfect rows. My ears had stretched upward, becoming long and pointed like some kind of dark elf. I parted my lips. My teeth had transformed into rows of jagged, interlocking fangs. They looked sharp enough to tear through bone and gristle like paper. But the most jarring change was on my head. 2 black horns, resembling those of a dragon, had sprouted from my skull. I heard a soft gasp. Li Sitong was standing in the doorway, staring at my reflection. She swallowed hard, her eyes wide. For a long time, she didn't say a word. So, cute, she finally whispered. Before I could react, she rushed over. She couldn't help herself. She started tugging on my pointed ears and pinching my cheeks, her face lighting up like a little girl who had just received her first teddy bear. A little dragon man, she cooed. I blinked, my mind racing. I was stunned. I expected to look like a nightmare, some kind of horrific, bloodthirsty demon. Instead, I looked almost charming. I leaned in closer to the mirror. To be honest, I looked a bit like a high-end goblin. Where do I look like a goblin? I snapped, looking at her. I just meant the color of your skin, she explained quickly, laughing. But you're way better looking than a goblin. Actually, you're pretty handsome. I looked down at the rest of my body. The transformation wasn't just my face. My hands were covered in deep green scales, ending in 4-inch black talons that caught the light. A thick, tapered tail had ripped right through my pants, swaying behind me. I stripped off my jacket and shirt to see the full extent of it. My chest was thick and powerful. My abs were defined, flanked by scales that wrapped around my waist and climbed up my back. My face might have looked cute to her, but the rest of me was a weapon. I was built for combat. Lee Sitong stood beside me, her eyes gleaming. I knew I picked the right man. Even your monster form is perfect. I stared at myself, feeling like the transformation wasn't quite finished. I focused on the power humming in my veins. My face began to shift again. My hair retracted into my scalp. My brow bone lengthened, and my neck grew thick and corded. When the movement stopped, my entire head had become a draconic mask of shimmering green scales. Lee Sitong squinted, inspecting me. Now you look like a dragon warrior. I think I liked the other version better, though. I maintained the form for about 10 minutes until I felt I had the hang of it. Then, I forced the power back down. My body returned to normal, but I realized I needed to buy bigger clothes tomorrow. The transformation made my muscles swell so much that my current outfit felt like it was going to burst. The good news was I wasn't some disgusting tentacle monster. I actually looked cool. Then I remembered the burning in my gut. I looked at Lee Sitong, confused. How is your alcohol tolerance so high? You drank as much as I did, and you're fine. She gave me a mischievous grin. I didn't drink any. I bit my tongue to keep from cursing. She had played me. She stayed for a few more minutes, satisfied with what she'd seen, and then she left. She told me she'd been away from home all night and had to get back. I didn't want to stay in this hotel. It felt like a nest for monsters, but walking home alone at night felt even more dangerous. I took a hot shower and called my mom. She told me she was flying back the day after tomorrow. I kept my voice serious, telling her to stay in crowded places and not to go out at night. I even told her the trick about spraying herself with alcohol. She asked what was going on, but I couldn't tell her the truth. I didn't want to scare my sister, and my mom would probably just think I was playing a prank. We used to joke about seeing aliens all the time. To her, this would just be another wolf is coming story. I hung up and collapsed into bed. I was exhausted, but the hunger was still there, gnawing at my insides. The next morning was gray and rainy. I took the crowded bus home to change clothes before heading to school. The morning was lonely. My desk mate, Yang Jia, was missing. Apparently, she'd been caught smoking in the bathroom and was currently standing in the dean's office writing, "I will never smoke again" 100 times. The weirdest part of the day was when the rain stopped. Wang Fei actually invited me to play basketball. I couldn't believe the nerve of the guy. Last night, he was stalking me, looking like he wanted to eat me alive. Today, he acted like we were best friends. I turned him down. I didn't want to give him the satisfaction, and honestly, I was too hungry to move. I spent the whole day glued to my seat. Moving my legs felt like a monumental task. I knew Lee Sidong had food that could fix this, but I couldn't bring myself to ask. I was afraid that if I started, I'd never be able to stop. I wasn't a real monster. I was an undercover human. I still hated the idea of eating my own kind. School let out early at 4:20 since it was Friday. I hopped on the bus heading toward the Chofing district. The night before, I had caught a scent through the bus window. It wasn't sweet, but it made my stomach growl with an intensity I'd never felt. It didn't smell like human blood. I had a feeling that whatever was making that smell could finally fill the void in my stomach. I would have checked it out last night if Wang Fei hadn't been tailing me. As the bus reached the same stretch of road, that specific scent hit me again. It flooded my brain. I shouted for the driver to stop and bolted off the bus the second the doors hissed open. I stood at a busy four-way intersection. It wasn't a fancy part of town. The buildings were low, and the streets were narrow and congested. To the right lay the Shiyun district, a massive industrial zone. I looked over and saw a forest of steel, rows of factories and towering chimneys belching white smoke. Hundreds of thousands of families in Xinghe City relied on those factories for survival. The scent was coming from right in the middle of that industrial maze. I pulled out my phone, opened the map, and zoomed in. I could feel it calling to me. Whatever was waiting in those shadows, I was going to find it. I scanned the map on my phone, zooming in on the names of the industrial plants. My brow furrowed. Slaughterhouses. The scent was coming directly from a cluster of livestock processing plants. I wondered if the smell that had been driving me crazy was actually just animal blood and flesh. The plants were hundreds of meters away. A normal person wouldn't smell a thing, but my senses had mutated. Being an undercover monster meant my nose was sharper than any predator's, especially when I was starving. It was actually getting a little embarrassing. Back at the school cafeteria, I could tell exactly which girls were on their periods just by the scent. But something didn't add up. Li Sitong had told me that only humans could satisfy our hunger. She said eating anything else was useless. I stood there, watching the crowds of factory workers in their uniforms pouring out for their dinner break, feeling conflicted. I decided to trust my nose. I walked toward the industrial zone, my heart pounding with a mix of fear and hope. I stopped at the massive gates of a slaughterhouse. This was it. The air was thick with the heavy, metallic tang of livestock blood. My stomach roared. I wasn't disgusted. I was ecstatic. If I could survive on animal blood, I wouldn't have to be a murderer. This felt like a gift from God. I was so hungry my legs felt like jelly. I needed to test this immediately. I flagged down a taxi and headed for the nearest poultry market. Usually, I'd never spend $10 on a cab. My weekly budget was only $150, but this was an emergency. While in the car, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Li Sitong. "Where are you? Come out. I'll buy you dinner." I knew what she meant by dinner. She didn't mean a restaurant. She meant picking a random person off the street. Last night, she'd told me she wanted to take me hunting over the weekend to show me the ropes. "No thanks," I typed back. "I'll find my own way to eat." "No," she replied instantly. "This is your first time. I have to teach you personally." I tried to deflect with a joke. "Can't we just buy a blood donation van? You're rich. I'll chip in $100, you cover the rest. We could eat our fill every day without hurting anyone." "Are you an idiot?" she shot back. "And stop using sensitive words in chat. Do you want the cyber police to track us down?" I realized she was right about the chat logs, but I didn't really care. If the authorities wanted us, they'd find us anyway. According to Li Sitong, we had to hide our identities mostly to avoid awakeners, people who got stronger by killing monsters like us. They hunted us just as fiercely as monsters hunted humans. "I'll talk to you later," I messaged. "I'm busy." I reached the market and spent 100 yuan on a live chicken. When I got home, the struggle began. I had no idea how to slaughter a bird. Feathers flew everywhere. Eventually, I couldn't stand the poor thing's suffering anymore and snapped its neck. I made a quick cut and drained the blood into a bowl. The scent hit me again, intoxicating and rich. I dipped a finger in, my heart racing. I was terrified it wouldn't work. I licked the drop off my finger. My eyes lit up. It didn't taste metallic or gross. It was sweet, like some kind of exotic fruit juice. A surge of energy rushed through me. I didn't care about being messy anymore. I picked up the bowl and gulped the blood down before it could clot. For the first time in forever, I felt full. Power returned to my limbs. The fog in my brain cleared instantly. It felt like I'd been drowning in a swamp for days and finally reached dry land. I leaned against the kitchen counter, gasping for air, my chest heaving. It felt amazing, and I was so relieved I wanted to cry. I didn't have to be a monster. I could stay human. I wiped the blood from my lips, making sure not to waste a single drop. Now that I was full, I could focus on finding other monsters to hunt so I could get stronger. I started to clean up the mess, but then I heard the click of my front door. I froze, my first thought being that my dad was home early, but then I felt it. A familiar, predatory aura. A head poked through the door. It was Li Sitong. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. "How did you get in?" I asked. "And how do you have a key?" "Picking a lock isn't exactly hard," she said, stepping inside and kicking off her shoes like she owned the place. She walked toward the kitchen. "I came because I missed you." She stopped at the kitchen door and looked at the blood-splattered scene. "What are you doing?" "Killing a chicken," I said quickly. I couldn't let her know the truth. If word got out that I could survive on animal blood, I'd become a lab rat. "I was going to cook a nice dinner for you." Li Sitong stared at me, her eyes narrowing. She stepped forward, grabbed my collar, and pulled me close. She sniffed my breath. "You're lying," she said, her voice turning cold. "You bought this chicken to drink its blood. You wanted to see if animal blood would satisfy the hunger. You lied to me." I sighed, realizing I couldn't fool her. Fine, that was the plan at first. But once you showed up, I really did think about cooking for you. She smiled thinly. I'll forgive you this once. So how did it taste? It didn't work, did it? I shook my head, feigning disappointment. No, it didn't do anything. Stop wasting your time, she said. I'm telling you, as far as I know, nothing but humans will ever be enough. Nothing can satisfy our hunger, Li Sitong said, her voice trailing off as she released my collar. Weren't you going to make me something delicious? Get moving. She started wandering through the house like she owned the place. She grabbed a bag of snacks from the table and started eating, completely uninvited. But even though she acted like she was at home, she was surprisingly respectful. She didn't step foot in my bedroom or my mother's room. She didn't even go near the empty room we kept for my sister. When she wanted to check the storage closet, she actually stopped and asked for my permission first. In the kitchen, the smell of raw chicken hung heavy in the air. I was covered in sweat, frantically plucking feathers. I hadn't actually planned on cooking this thing, but Li Sitong had forced my hand. Luckily, I knew my way around a stove. I might have been a monster now, but I was still a decent cook. While I worked, Li Sitong kicked off her shoes and curled up on the sofa with her phone. She was wearing a white turtleneck and loose jeans, her long black hair spilling over her shoulders. She wasn't wearing a drop of makeup. She didn't need it. Soon, the aroma of spicy stir-fried chicken filled the apartment. We sat down at the small table to eat. Li Sitong took small, slow bites. I knew she wasn't hungry for human food. Since our transformation, normal meals tasted like ash compared to the real stuff. She was just enjoying the moment, the feeling of a quiet dinner with a boyfriend. I understood how she felt. I remembered the rush of drinking that bowl of chicken blood earlier. It was intoxicating. Everything else felt dull in comparison. About what you said last night, I said, breaking the silence. How can I make my family safer? She didn't look up from her plate. I'm not sure how we turned into what we are, but I have a way to turn your family into monsters too. Not full monsters, but something close. No, I said instantly. I couldn't do that to them. Sure, they'd be stronger and less likely to be hunted by other monsters, but they'd be stuck in this half-human, half-demon limbo. I wasn't even sure what I was yet. I had to protect them within the human world for as long as possible. The government is building safety zones, right? I asked. I'll wait for those. Until then, I'll just make sure they aren't alone. Li Sitong nibbled on a chicken wing, careful not to get grease on her sweater. After a while, I asked the question that had been bugging me. Why couldn't I sense your aura earlier? I didn't know you were there until you opened the door. It was the same thing that happened at the villa. When the hunter attacked, I couldn't feel her anywhere. I thought she'd abandoned me. It's not a big secret, she said. Once you get strong enough, you can control your aura. You can expand it or shrink it down to almost nothing. How small can you shrink yours? About 5 meters, she replied. Unless someone is insanely powerful, they won't sense me if I'm further away than that. I realized then just how dangerous she was. She wasn't some low-level monster. She was at the top of the food chain. By 8:20 p.m., we had finished most of the pot. Before I could even wash the dishes, she dragged me out of the house. She wanted to see a movie. I didn't feel like going out, but I couldn't win an argument with her. We ended up in a theater watching a classic foreign romance. I'd seen it a dozen times, but Li Sitong watched with wide eyes, leaning her head on my shoulder and eating popcorn. I looked at her, wondering if this was what happiness felt like. Every guy at school wanted her, and here she was, obsessed with me. But I couldn't shake the doubt. Did she actually like me? Or was she just looking for a hunting partner? Or, even worse, was Wang Fei right? Was she just fattening me up like livestock so she could devour me later? Just as I leaned in to take a piece of popcorn from her hand, a cold, sinister voice whispered from the shadows behind us. Caught you. My skin crawled. My heart nearly jumped out of my chest. A hunter? Was it all over? Li Sitong and I spun around at the same time, our eyes dark with lethal intent. But when I saw the face in the dark, my blood pressure spiked for a different reason. It was Yang Jie, grinning like a maniac. Are you crazy? We both snapped in unison. I'm not crazy, you two are. Yang Jie pointed a finger at us. You're sick with love? You're so young, and already out here on dates. We aren't dating. I lied. Shut up. Don't lie to me. I saw the class monitor leaning on your shoulder. And I saw you two getting into a taxi together last night. License plate Jiang, B.T. 1089. Did you go to a hotel? The theater was empty except for us, so his voice echoed off the walls. I was about to keep arguing, but Lee Sitong suddenly grabbed my arm and pulled me close. Yeah, she said, her voice full of pride. We're dating. What's it to you, Yangjia? You jealous because Jiang Xia found a beautiful girlfriend? Yangjia looked like he'd been slapped. Jealous? Me? I'm a legendary lady killer. I've seen more beautiful women than you can count. He turned to me, looking heartbroken. Xia, we're done. I can't believe you hid this from me. After everything we've been through, I'm disowning you as my son. I ignored his drama. Why are you even here? Were you following us? He crossed his arms, looking smug. What? You're the only one allowed to bring a girl to the movies. You're on a date too? I asked, skeptical. Yang Jia pulled out his phone and showed us a photo of a girl. He had a greasy, triumphant smile. Pretty hot, right? I've been talking to her for 2 weeks. Finally got her to come out tonight. The woman in the photo wore a blue and white Lolita dress. She stood in front of a mirror, showing off legs clad in black silk, her phone blocking her face. She looked petite but curvy. Lee Sitong scoffed beside me. Online dating? Is that even reliable? Haven't you heard how risky that is? Risky? Yang Jie gave a disdainful laugh, slapping his chest. How could a woman I picked be a risk? He pulled up his chat logs and played the latest voice message. I'm stuck in traffic. I might be a little late, sorry. The voice was high-pitched and sugary, what we call a clapper voice. Yang Jie beamed at us, his face radiating triumph. Well, sounds pretty sweet, right? I winced. I'd never heard someone try that hard to sound cute. It's way too forced, man. So what? Yang Jie struck a pose like a famous comedy actor. I like them forced. It's my style. Then why aren't you waiting outside for her? I asked. I saw you two sneak in here, he said, his tone turning serious for a second. I had to see if it was really you. I have to say, Xia, you're a legend. You actually landed the class monitor. Stop talking, Lee Sitong interrupted. Don't ruin the movie for us. Big deal, Yang Jie muttered, straightening his designer jacket and wiping a smudge off his brand new sneakers. Don't think you're the only ones who can show off. Once my Xiaoyu gets here, I'll show you what a real power couple looks like. It was strange seeing Yang Jie dressed up like this. His family was wealthy, but he was essentially an orphan after his parents died in a car crash years ago. His grandparents spoiled him with endless pocket money, but usually, he dressed like a total loser. He normally looked like a shut-in who lived at an internet cafe, not a rich heir. A few minutes later, Yang Jie hummed a tune and danced his way out to meet his date. 1 minute later, he came back. He walked with his head hanging low, looking like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. Behind him followed a woman in a Lolita dress. She was substantial. Her shoes looked like they were screaming for mercy under her weight. My face went red. I had to hold it in. I couldn't laugh, not now. Beside me, Lee Sitong was shaking, clearly struggling to keep it together. Yang Jie sat directly behind us, staring at his feet in deep depression. But as the girl, Xiaoyu, sat down, the humor drained out of me. My nerves went taut like a violin string. I had been so focused on Yang Jie's failure that I hadn't noticed the scent. She wasn't human. She was one of us. Xiaoyu didn't seem to notice my reaction. She set 2 buckets of popcorn down and clung to Yang Jie's arm. Yang Jie looked at me, saw me staring, and quickly looked away. His lips moved silently, mouthing a string of curses at his own bad luck. Do you know them? Xiaoyu asked, her voice still that forced, sugary chirp. No, Yang Jie said quickly, shaking his head. I don't know them. Let's just watch the movie and go home. Lee Sitong stopped paying attention to them, but I couldn't. I was terrified. This girl hadn't approached Yang Jie for a romance. She was looking for a meal. My best friend was in mortal danger. Lee Sitong didn't seem interested in helping. She watched the screen, casually feeding me popcorn. Xiaoyu tried to do the same for Yang Jie, but he kept his mouth clamped shut. Baby, what's wrong? Don't you like popcorn? Don, don't call me baby, Yang Jie whispered, his skin crawling. I think our relationship, maybe we moved too fast. What? You want to break up already? Xiaoyu pouted, her voice booming. But you called me baby every day in the chat. Lee Sitong sprayed her cola across the seat in front of us. Yang Jie gritted his teeth. He knew he was being mocked. I'm angry now, Xiaoyu huffed, crossing her arms. I won't be happy unless you feed me. Fine. Yang Jie snapped, grabbing the popcorn bucket and standing up. Open your mouth. I'll just pour the whole thing in. Li Sidong lost it. She gripped my shoulder and laughed out loud. Yang Jie's forehead was bulging with veins. This date was a total disaster for his pride. What are you laughing at? Xiaoyu asked, glaring at Li Sitong. Nothing, Li Sitong said, leaning her head on my shoulder while still giggling. The movie is just really funny. I looked down at Li Sitong's smiling face. For a split second, my heart skipped a beat. I shook the thought away and watched Yang Jie stand up. I'm going to the bathroom, he muttered, fleeing the scene like a gust of wind. Xiaoyu stood up to follow him, but I reached out and grabbed her arm. Yang Jie and I had been best friends since middle school. We talked about everything, girls, the world, the stars. When I was broke, he never hesitated to pay for my meals or my gaming sessions. I didn't think I was strong enough to save the world, but I had to save him. He's my friend, I said, my voice calm as I looked her in the eye. Give him a pass. Xiaoyu gave me a disdainful smile and tried to pull her arm away. He's your friend, not mine. We didn't know each other before, but we do now, I said. Do me a favor. We might be able to help each other out in the future. She shook her head. If he were your family, maybe, but just a friend. I can't do that. If I let everyone's friends go, I'd starve to death. She paused, her eyes glinting. Unless you have someone better to offer. Someone you can definitely set me up with. I smiled thinly. I already had someone in mind. Fine. If you leave my friend alone, I'll recommend a real catch. 6 feet tall, handsome, athletic. He's the star of the basketball team and half the girls in school are chasing him. He's exactly your type. I was going to give her Wang Fei. Let me see a photo first, Xiaoyu said. She glanced at Li Sitong, sensing the other woman's strength. She knew she couldn't win a 2-on-1 fight if things turned ugly. I pulled out my phone, opened Wang Fei's social media, and showed her a picture of him smiling on the court. How's that? Better than my friend, right? Xiaoyu's eyes lit up as she stared at the screen. The girl nodded slowly, her eyes fixed on the screen. Yeah, she whispered. He's not bad. Definitely easier on the eyes than your friend. She looked back at me, her expression turning blunt. To be honest, your friend is pretty ugly. Seeing him in person made me realize just how risky online dating can be. Li Sitong and I both had to bite our tongues to keep from laughing. It turned out the feeling was mutual. Yang Jie wasn't the only one disappointed by the blind date. Open your QR code, I said, pulling out my phone. I'll add you and send his contact info. If he asks who recommended you, just say Zhongli. His name is Wang Fei. You can just call him Ah Fei. She pulled up her code, but then she paused, her eyes narrowing. Is this guy your enemy or something? We have a bit of a history, I admitted with a thin smile. So, feel free to be as thorough as you like with him. He's easy to get out. One hint of a girl being interested and his brain shuts off. You could probably get him to meet you tonight. Beside me, Li Sitong looked up. I could tell she was already imagining the look on their faces when they realized they were both monsters. All right, I added you, the girl said. Accept it later. I'll give you a pass tonight because of this catch. I'm heading out. When your friend gets back, tell him I had a family emergency. She disappeared into the shadows of the theater. 2 minutes later, Yang Jie returned, looking like a man who had just escaped a death sentence when he heard she was gone. He didn't even wait for the movie to finish before trying to drag us out for late-night snacks. Li Sitong shut him down immediately. Forget it. Don't ruin our private time. She leaned in, giving Yang Jie a look that could freeze blood. And if you dare tell anyone about me and Zhang Xia, I'll tell the whole school about your failed online date. Yang Jie looked like he was about to burst. He lived for gossip, but he lived for his reputation even more. The threat of his middle-aged lady date going public was enough to keep him quiet. He sighed, clapping a heavy hand on my shoulder. Take care of yourself, Zhang Xia, he muttered solemnly. By the time the movie ended, it was nearly 11. Li Sitong still didn't let me go home. We ended up walking through Qingshan Memorial Park. The winter air was biting, and the park was deserted. We climbed the stone steps, heading deep into the woods. The trees here were strangely lush and green despite the freezing temperatures. I pulled out my phone and called my mom. She was safe. She told me she'd be at the airport tomorrow. I hung up, the weight in my chest finally lifting. You really care about your family, don't you? Li Sitong asked, watching me. Who wouldn't? I replied. Then tell me, she said, a playful glint in her eyes. If your mom and I both fell into a river, who would you save first? I stared at her. Why do women always ask that? Just answer. The law says I have to save my mother, I said bluntly. It's a crime if I don't. And after you save her? She asked, stepping closer. Would you jump back in to die with me? Before I could answer, her phone started ringing. She checked the caller ID and her face went pale. She whispered a few hurried words. I'm coming right now, and hung up. I have to go, she said, already turning to run. Go home by yourself. I wanted to take you hunting tonight, but it'll have to wait until tomorrow. In the blink of an eye, she was gone. I stood there in the dark, stunned. Are you kidding me? I muttered. She was leaving me alone in a place like this? I started to follow her path out of the park, but after a few steps, I froze. The air changed. A familiar, predatory scent was drifting toward me. Another monster was close. I slowed my pace, my heart hammering against my ribs. It was definitely one of my kind. I didn't wait to find out who. I turned and bolted in the opposite direction. Safety was the only priority, but I hadn't gone far when I heard it. A low, rhythmic whistling carried on the cold wind. It was coming from the woods ahead. Then, a second scent hit me. There were two of them. The whistling grew louder, a tune I recognized from the hallways at school. I tried to pivot, but a figure stepped out from behind a tree, blocking my path. Wang Fei stood there, hands in his pockets, the whistling stopping as he smirked at me. Sorry, Jiangxia. You're not running away this time. I backed up a step, but my ears caught a rustle behind me. I spun around. Blocking my retreat was the fat girl from the movie theater. I cursed under my breath. How the hell were they together already? I had just sent her his contact info minutes ago. You two move fast, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Wang Fei laughed, a cold, jagged sound. It's not that we're fast. It's that we've known each other for a month. She's my girlfriend. My head spun. If they already knew each other, then my recommendation hadn't saved Yang Jia. It had signaled my exact location. This was a setup. Li Sitong had been lured away, and I was the prey. How did you two meet? I asked, trying to buy every second I could. I was 1 against 2. I was a novice, and Wang Fei had been hunting and devouring for who knows how long. Running into the dense woods was suicide. He had too much experience. My only hope was to get past him to the stairs. Doesn't matter how, Wang Fei said. He stepped forward, a long, black tongue flicking out to lick his lips. He looked at me like I was a 5-course meal. He didn't usually have an appetite for strangers, but for someone he knew, someone he hated, the hunger was overwhelming. You're pretty slick, Jiangxia. Trying to sell me out to save your friend. It was just business, I said, shifting my weight. You're a monster, she's a monster. I thought I was doing you a favor. The only favor you can do me, Wang Fei hissed, his eyes glowing with a feral light, is letting me see what you taste like. Why are you so obsessed with me? I spat, my voice trembling. We're classmates. There's no need for us to kill each other. Wang Fei laughed, but there was no warmth in it. Jiangxia, Li Sitong must have told you a lot. You should realize by now that the world has changed. There's no such thing as classmate sentiment anymore. There's only the hunters and the prey. Besides, it's not like we were ever friends. I was cornered. My mind raced, searching for any leverage. If you eat me, aren't you afraid of Li Sitong? I asked, throwing her name out like a shield. Wang Fei's smile didn't falter. He shook his head slowly, looking at me with pure disdain as if Li Sitong was the last thing on his mind. Then his eyes turned cold. He crouched low and lunged. My heart nearly exploded. I didn't think he'd move that fast. Couldn't we just talk for a few more minutes? I was terrified down to my marrow, my legs feeling like jelly, but I had to fight. I tapped into the heat in my blood, pushing the mutation forward. Green scales erupted across my limbs in an instant. As Wang Fei reached me, I swung my claws, the air whistling with the force of the strike. Then, a massive weight slammed into my chest. It felt like being hit by a freight train. I flew backward, the world spinning until I hit the dirt hard. Wang Fei stood a few meters away, sneering. I love hunting weaklings like you. Just give up. Don't fight it, and maybe I'll make it quick. I clutched my chest, my face flushed with pain and shame. I hadn't missed his hands, I had missed the 2 extra black claws that had sprouted from his waist. The good news? The fat girl behind me hadn't moved. She seemed content to just watch. The bad news? Wang Fei was leagues ahead of me. Even one-on-one, I stood no chance. I struggled to my feet, but Wang Fei was already charging again. Just as he was about to reach me, a thick, black tentacle shot out from the trees. It cracked like a whip, slamming into Wang Fei and forcing him back. My heart leaped. Li Sitong. She hadn't left me. But as the figure stepped out of the shadows, my jaw dropped. It wasn't her, it was a man. He was about average height with short hair, wearing a black t-shirt and, of all things, a bright red superhero cape. A black leather eye patch covered half his face. It was such a bizarre, ridiculous outfit that even Wang Fei and the fat girl froze in confusion. I rubbed my eyes, thinking I was hallucinating. The stranger's left hand was the tentacle, swaying like a whip. But something was wrong. Even though he showed monster traits, I couldn't feel that predatory vibe from him at all. He felt normal. Wang Fei looked wary. He couldn't sense the guy's power level either, which usually meant the person was so strong they could mask their aura completely. Who are you? Wang Fei demanded, stepping back. The stranger smiled coldly and stepped in front of me. Just a hero passing through to help the weak. The voice was familiar, too familiar. Wang Fei and the girl noticed it too. I frowned, pulled out my phone, and dialed a number. A ringtone echoed from the stranger's pocket. My eyes widened. It was Yang Jia. What the hell? Was Yang Jia a monster too? The hero pulled out his phone, glanced at the screen, and hung up on me. He put the phone to his ear and barked into the dead line. I'm busy right now. How many times do I have to tell you? If the project is worth less than $1 billion, don't call me. Wang Fei squinted. That voice. I know you. Do we know each other? Yang Jia laughed arrogantly. You might have heard of my legendary name, but I don't bother remembering small fry like you. Wang Fei hesitated. The voice and the attitude were recognizable, but he couldn't place them under that mask. He was terrified that this guy was some high-level predator. Friend, Wang Fei said, his voice cautious. In this world, it's best to mind your own business. Meddling only brings trouble. Trouble? Ha ha ha. Yang Jia put his hands on his hips and roared at the sky. I love trouble. I'll give you 10 seconds to get lost. Run fast, and you might actually live. Wang Fei looked at me, his eyes full of resentment. He had missed his chance last night, and now, just when he had me dead to rights, this masked freak showed up. He weighed his options for a moment and nodded. Fine, I'll give you this face. Xiaoyu, let's go. He turned to leave, and I felt a wave of relief. But then, Wang Fei's eyes caught something. He saw Yang Jia's legs. They weren't standing tall, they were shaking uncontrollably from pure terror. Wang Fei's face twisted into a grin. Bluffing. Before Yang Jia could react, Wang Fei lunged with his claws out. Holy crap, Yang Jia screamed, stumbling backward. Think about this. If we fight, you'll die. While they clashed, the fat girl finally moved. I sensed the danger and dove to the side just as the ground where I'd been standing was swallowed by a shadow. In her place stood a massive, 2-meter-tall carnivorous plant. It was a nightmare of black flesh and octopus-like roots dripping with slime. Its flower was a spiral of 6 layers of rotating, jagged teeth. Red eyeballs covered its outer skin, twitching in every direction. The giant mouth slammed toward me like a sledgehammer. I scrambled, dodging by pure survival instinct. It wasn't an epic battle. I felt like a rat being chased around a kitchen by a human with a broom. I had no way to hit back. I was just trying to stay uncrushed. I looked over at Yang Jia, hoping for a miracle, but my heart sank. Just as I was holding my own against the plant, I saw Yang Jia drop to his knees in front of Wang Fei. He looked up at the sports rep with total sincerity and said, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I nearly choked. Seriously? I was still fighting for my life, and my hero had already surrendered? Wang Fei stood over him, looking down like a god about to deliver a death blow. Wang Fei looked down at the man groveling at his feet and let out a harsh laugh. I knew it. I knew you were just a paper tiger. Yang Jia looked up, his eyes watery and visible through the gaps in his leather mask. He looked pathetic. Forgive me for my tone earlier, he whimpered. I was a bit arrogant. We're all educated people here. Fighting and killing, it's so uncivilized. Can't we just be friends and forget this happened? Wang Fei's eyes narrowed, his suspicion growing. You're Yang Jie, aren't you? Yang Jie's breathing hitched. Who? You mean the famous Yang Jie from Class 1? The honor student? I've seen him once. A great guy, truly impressive. Since you know him, we're basically on the same side, right? Wang Fei didn't buy a word of it. He reached down and ripped the mask clean off Yang Jie's face. I knew it was you, you bastard. Yang Jie's face crumpled. Wang Fei, come on. We're classmates. You sit right behind me. Why should we kill each other? Look, I'm someone of importance in our class. Give me some face and just let me and Jiang Xia go. Wang Fei smiled, but there was no kindness in it. I really don't understand how your brain works. You're terrified of death, yet you came here to die. You're so pathetic, I almost don't want to kill you. Almost. He paused, a cruel glint in his eye. But unfortunately, squelch. Mid-sentence, a jagged tentacle burst through Wang Fei's abdomen. He froze. He couldn't believe it. This coward, this man who was just begging for his life, had actually landed a sneak attack. Wang Fei roared in fury, raising a leg to kick Yang Jie away, but Yang Jie was faster. He scrambled back, creating distance instantly. Wang Fei, for an experienced hunter, you really shouldn't let your guard down like that, Yang Jie said. The pathetic whimpering was gone. A sinister smile played on his lips. Wang Fei's eyes turned bloodshot. His facial muscles twitched with uncontrollable rage. Then, suddenly, he started to laugh. It was a high, chilling sound that echoed through the area. I watched from the side, my heart hammering against my ribs. These people were insane. Every single one of them was a psychopath. But I didn't have time to worry about them. I was in much worse shape. Red vines had snaked around my legs and torso, pinning me down. Above me, the massive stoneflower plant opened its maw, ready to swallow me whole. I jammed my claws into the edges of its giant mouth, straining every muscle to keep it from closing. Black, foul-smelling slime dripped onto my face. It reeked of rotting meat. Even with my mutated, toughened skin, the plant's serrated teeth began to saw into my palms. As soon as my blood touched the center of the flower, the entire creature began to shudder violently. The fat girl behind the transformation wasn't like us. She needed normal humans for nutrients. But my blood was different. Just a few drops provided more energy than an entire person. She didn't just want to kill me anymore. She wanted to consume every last drop of me. The stench of decay from the flower's throat was suffocating. My strength was fading. The black slime had a numbing effect, like a local anesthetic spreading through my veins. My arms felt heavy. My grip was slipping. Just as despair started to take hold, a shadow appeared beside me. I caught a scent, a faint, delicate fragrance. I knew that smell. It was Li Sitong. I turned my head with agonizing slowness. It was her. My heart leaped with hope. I had never been so happy to see her in my life. Help me, I screamed. Help you? A raspy, mocking voice echoed from inside the flower. No one can help you now. I looked at Li Sitong again, but something was wrong. She wasn't moving. Then, my vision blurred. One Li Sitong became two. They looked like twin sisters standing over me. I realized with a sinking heart that she wasn't actually there. The plant's venom was making me hallucinate. The hope I felt shattered like glass. Thwip, thwip, thwip. Thorny vines shot out from the plant's throat, wrapping around my face. The thorns tore into my skin like needles, sucking the blood straight out of my pores. The giant meat flower trembled with ecstasy. Why, the voice hissed. Why is your blood so rich? It makes me so excited. What are you? So much nutrition, it feels so good. The two Li Sitongs in my vision split again. Now there were four. They stood there, smiling down at me with mocking sweetness. Dear, the hallucinations whispered in unison. Are you giving up? Do you want me to help you? I want to, but I can't. In the back of my mind, I knew these visions were just a reflection of my own weakness. I was desperate for a savior. I was waiting for a girl to come and rescue me. A surge of pure, burning shame washed over me. Was I really this pathetic? Was I just a piece of meat waiting to be carved up unless someone else stepped in? No. A red haze clouded my vision. My skull felt like it was cracking as the mutation pushed further. A heavy, teal-scaled tail tore through my pants, lashing out with a mind of its own. It broke free from the vines and plunged deep into the throat of the stoneflower. The creature let out a horrific, ear-splitting shriek. I felt a new power surging. At the tip of my tail, the bone structure shifted and expanded like a blooming mechanical flower. It began to spin at a blurred speed, turning into a living chainsaw. Ripping, tearing, shredding. Dark, oily blood sprayed across my face. The fat girl screamed in agony, a sound that ripped through the air. Stop! Make it stop! I didn't stop. I buried my claws into the sides of the maw, holding it open so it couldn't retreat. My tail saw roared, acting like a meat grinder inside the creature's throat. I was beyond reason. I was feral. The vines holding me loosened as the plant's nervous system collapsed under the pain. Within seconds, I had shredded the flower's mouth into a heap of mangled flesh. The massive black core of the plant fell to the ground, twitching and writhing. I didn't give it a chance to recover. I lunged forward, my claws flashing in the dim light. I tore into the meat, throwing chunks of black flesh into the air. You wanted to eat me? I growled, my voice sounding like grinding stones. Come on then, eat. The fear was gone. It had been replaced by a cold, reckless disregard for life, mine or anyone else's. I didn't stop until the giant black mass was nothing more than a pile of silent, cooling scraps. I stood over the remains, chest heaving, gasping for air. The shredded pieces of meat still pulsed with a faint, dying energy. As the life left them, a warm current began to flow into my body. It felt like thousands of tiny threads weaving into my cells. My muscles tightened. My scales took on a sharper, teal glint. I could feel it. I had grown stronger. If this world had levels, I had just moved up. I didn't run. Instead, I wiped the dark blood from my face and turned toward the other fight. My eyes locked onto Wang Fei and Yang Jie. The Dragon Man was ready to join the fray. Yang Jie looked at me, her eyes filled with a mix of exhaustion and envy. I could tell what she was thinking. Why was my transformed state so much more powerful than hers? Wang Fei, on the other hand, was stunned. He stared at the shredded remains of the giant plant on the ground, surprised that I actually had this kind of strength. Then, a cold, mocking smile spread across his face. You destroyed the food I've been cultivating for so long, he hissed. But that's fine. That thing was too ugly to eat anyway. Consuming the two of you will be much better. As he spoke, his back lurched. Two slimy, black claws tore through his clothes, stretching out until they were nearly 5 feet long. He now had 6 demonic limbs ready to strike. Wang Fei lunged, all 6 claws coming at me at once. I didn't try to dodge. I didn't try to be clever. I threw my entire body forward, meeting his attack head-on. Wang Fei was an experienced fighter. If I tried to trade blows with him technically, I knew I wouldn't stand a chance. I had to be reckless. I wanted to live, but I knew that if I showed even a hint of fear now, both Yang Jie and I were dead. He didn't expect me to charge him like a madman. I slammed into him like a starving tiger, pinning him to the ground. Before he could react, my sharp tail whipped forward, aiming straight for the space between his eyes. He panicked. His body jerked, and he barely managed to catch my tail with 2 of his hands just inches from his skull. Damn you! You're dead, Wang Fei roared. He moved his other 4 claws, intending to impale me and rip my chest open. But before he could strike, several dark purple tentacles shot out from the side. They wrapped around his remaining limbs, binding them tight. Even though his claws were already scraping against my skin, they were forcibly pulled back. Kill him, Jiangxia, Yang Jie screamed, the veins on her forehead bulging from the effort of holding him down. I didn't need to be told twice. I raised my claws and started hacking. I didn't aim for vital spots. I just shredded everything. My claws tore into Wang Fei's face and head, taking chunks of flesh with every swing. Wang Fei's head began to mutate further, shifting into something resembling a hairless, black dog, but it didn't help. My claws kept coming. The agonizing pain forced a horrific scream from his throat. His only free hands were still desperately gripping my tail stinger, trying to keep it from piercing his brain. I tore his face to ribbons, but I realized his skull was incredibly thick. It wasn't going to break easily. My eyes shifted down to his chest, right over his heart. I raised my claw and slammed it down. There was a wet thud as my claws punctured his chest. I felt my fingertips brush against something hot and pulsing. His heart. One more push, and it would be over. But Wang Fei's survival instinct was terrifying. He manipulated the muscles in his chest, clamping down on my hand like a vice, trapping my claws inside his body. With death hanging over him, he finally lost his arrogance. I lose, he wheezed. I didn't let go. My eyes were bloodshot, and my chest heaved as I gasped for air. Wang Fei was a nightmare to look at. His face was a ruin of shredded meat from forehead to chin. His left eye had been popped, leaking a thick, lime-green fluid. His right eye was still there, but the skin around the socket was gone, leaving the white bone of his skull exposed through the black and red gore. I was wrong, he whispered, his voice a raspy thread. Let's just stop this tonight. Please. He was begging. He never imagined that two weaker monsters would team up to bring him down. He knew if he didn't surrender now, he was finished. Kill him. A cold, sharp voice rang out from the trees. Li Sitong stepped into the moonlight, her arms crossed. She looked down at Wang Fei with utter indifference. Her appearance pushed Wang Fei into true despair. He knew Li Sitong. If she wanted someone dead, there was no mercy. He turned back to me, his last hope. Jiang Xia, we're classmates. Let me go. I'll leave Xinghe City tomorrow. I'll never show my face to you again. Please. He sounded like a drowning man clutching at a straw. I stayed silent for 2 seconds. I took a deep breath, and my gaze turned ice cold. I drove my claws downward with everything I had. Wang Fei's remaining eye went wide. His body squish. I felt his heart thumping wildly against my palm, a frantic, searing heat that tried to push me out. There was no grand struggle. After a few violent twitches, his pupils dilated and he went still. A massive surge of warmth flooded into my body, far stronger than what I had felt after killing the plant. I pulled my hand out and slowly stood up, staring at the corpse. I felt a strange mix of emotions. Even if Li Sitong hadn't shown up, I wouldn't have let him live. I knew that if Wang Fei survived tonight, he would eventually come back to finish what he started. Well done, Li Sitong said, patting my shoulder. I saw a flash of genuine approval in her eyes. Holy crap, Yang Jie exhaled, looking like she had just escaped the gallows. She kicked Wang Fei's body. That bastard was way stronger than I thought. Glad that's over. I let my transformation recede, my body returning to its human form. Li Sitong turned her gaze toward Yang Jie. How are you one of us too? She asked. Yang Jie sighed, wiping sweat from her brow. Honestly, I wanted to hang out with you guys as a normal person. But all that got me was being ignored. I figured I had no choice but to show my true colors if I wanted to fit in. Even after fighting side by side, the air between us remained heavy with secrets. In this world, being classmates didn't mean anything. We were just predators trying not to become prey. I still couldn't believe it. My best friend, Yang Jie, was one of us. Li Sitong circled him, her eyes narrowing as she studied his body. There was no monster scent coming from him at all. He felt like a regular human. A hidden one, she whispered, a small smile playing on her lips. Hidden ones were rare. They could suppress their monstrous aura so perfectly that even other predators standing right next to them couldn't sense a thing. This was clearly a pleasant surprise for her. From now on, Li Sitong said, her voice smooth but commanding, you'll be a slave to me and Jiang Xia. What? A slave? Yang Jie snapped, planting his hands on his hips. He puffed out his chest, making his red cloak flare behind him. I'm Yang Jie, the famous Yang Jie of Xinghe High School. Even the janitors know my name. If word gets out that I'm your servant, how am I supposed to keep my reputation? Li Sitong didn't stop smiling, but her tone turned icy. You can be a slave, or you can be dead. Pick one. Yang Jie's eyes shifted. He took a breath, his bravado vanishing instantly. He started rubbing his hands together like a fly, a goofy grin plastered on his face. Hee, just kidding. If you need anything, just let me know. I'm at your service. I looked at Li Sitong, ignoring Yang Jie's theatrics. When did you get back? I was back before Wang Fei even showed up, she admitted. I was hiding in the woods the whole time. She had known it was a trap to lure her away. I felt a sting of annoyance. I used Yang Jie's red cloak to wipe the blood off my hands and face. Then why didn't you come out sooner? If I had come out early, would you have had such a great chance to grow? Her eyes flashed with a cold, ruthless light. She looked down at Wang Fei's corpse and suddenly stomped her foot onto his chest. Crunch. Blood surged out of the dead boy's mouth. Even though he was already gone, she was still venting her rage on his remains. He's already dead, Yang Jia muttered, looking uncomfortable. No need to mutilate the body. He's dead, but the crisis isn't over, Li Sitong said sharply. She looked at both of us. Go home. Wait for my call tomorrow morning. There was something big brewing in her mind. I could see it in her eyes, but I was too exhausted to care. I just wanted to sleep. Yang Jia didn't go to his own place. He came back to my house. We both took hot showers, trying to wash away the smell of copper and death. I sat on the sofa, feeling the fatigue deep in my marrow. My healing factor was working fast. The small cuts were already gone, and the deeper gashes would be healed by morning. When did it happen to you? I asked, looking at Yang Jia as he walked out of the bathroom. About 4 months ago, he said, leaning against the table. Back then, there weren't many of us at school. Then the scent of others started appearing more often. A few days ago, I realized even you had changed. He grabbed a piece of cold, spicy chicken from the table and tossed it into his mouth. What was the point of that online dating thing with the fat girl? I asked. Did you want to eat her? Yang Jia stopped chewing. He looked at me with total seriousness. If I told you I've never actually killed a human to eat, would you believe me? Is it because they don't taste good? I joked. He laughed, but his eyes stayed soft. My method doesn't kill them. I just make a tiny cut. I take a little blood while they aren't looking. They feel a bit weak afterward, but they never suspect a thing. I believed him. He was like me. He was trying to find a middle ground between being a monster and staying human. If my own hunger became unbearable, his way seemed like the only way to keep my soul. Why did you save me tonight? I asked. Because back at the cinema, you told that woman not to touch me, he said simply. You didn't know I was listening. Besides, we're brothers, aren't we? I went quiet for a second. What's the plan? Can you keep living on scraps forever? I'd love to eat my fill every day, Yang Jia said with a lopsided grin. But you know me. I'm soft-hearted. I can't bring myself to hurt the weak. I knew he wasn't just being soft. He was holding onto the last line of his humanity. He refused to open Pandora's box. Yang Jia looked up at the ceiling, his voice turning somber. What is wrong with this world? A guy like me should be the main character, right? But I'm not an awakened. I'm just a monster. Maybe I was just born to be a villain. He sighed, a rare moment of sadness breaking through his mask. I don't care about myself. I just want to get my old man and my grandparents into a safety zone. You have news about the safety zones? I asked. I was desperate for a lead. A little. I heard they're building them in the southwest mountains. They're huge, but the first wave won't take many people. He shook his head, pulling out his phone to break the mood. Forget it. Let's play. Log on. Fine. Let's go. Neither of us wanted to talk about being monsters anymore. It was a taboo we weren't ready to face. That night, my sleep was a minefield of nightmares. I dreamed I was at the gates of a safety zone, saying goodbye to my sister. But as she walked inside, I sensed hundreds of thousands of monsters lurking within the walls. Brother, save me. I looked up. Wang Fei was standing on the massive city wall, his face covered in blood. He was holding my sister by the throat. Jiang Xia, thank you, he sneered, his mouth opening impossibly wide. Thank you for delivering your family to us. I bolted upright in bed, drenched in sweat. My heart was hammering against my ribs. Killing a classmate had left a deeper scar on my mind than I wanted to admit. Asterisk beep. 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 Asterisk. My alarm was screaming. I grabbed the phone and saw a message from Li Sitong. Asterisk, don't sleep. Get up. Today, you do exactly what I say, or we all die. Asterisk. I knew a bigger crisis was coming. I replied, asking what was happening, but she wouldn't give me details. She just sent an address. Zuaming Hotel, room 801. We had to be there by 10. 10 o'clock. That was exactly when my mom's flight was supposed to land. I started worrying about how to tell her I couldn't pick her up, but then she called. The weather was bad, and her flight was delayed until the evening. I walked into the living room. Yang Jia was already awake, huddled in a blanket on the sofa, screaming at his phone. Are you guys brain dead? He yelled at his teammates. I said rush C1. How many times do I have to say it? Rush C1. Is there a family member of yours in C2 or something? Yang Jia barked at his phone. I seriously suspect you're all bots. That tank is going on a killing spree at the intersection. Can someone just go up and blow it up already? I used to love gaming, but under the current circumstances, I'd lost all interest. Looking at Yang Jia, though, his passion hadn't faded one bit. As monsters, our wounds healed fast. After just one night, the injuries we'd both sustained were almost invisible. Let's go, I said. Lee Sidong said she has things planned. We're following her lead today. Yang Jia glanced up for a split second before gluing his eyes back to the screen. Where to? If it's about hurting people, count me out. She said if we don't handle this right, we're all dead. That got his attention. Yang Jia froze, ears perking up as he finally set the phone down. Then we definitely have to go. The morning air was freezing. The sky hung low and gray, a dull, oppressive slate. People on the streets were bundled up in heavy coats, and I noticed more police cruisers on patrol than usual. It felt intentional. I couldn't shake the feeling that the day the world collapsed was getting closer. People were disappearing in droves. No matter how hard the officials tried to cover it up and maintain order, the truth was bound to explode online. You can't have that many people vanish without a trace and expect it to make sense forever. We bought a cup of soy milk on the way. It didn't stop the hunger, but the warmth felt good in my chest. At 9 in the morning, an hour before the meeting time, I arrived outside the Zuiming Hotel. I started walking toward the entrance, but then I realized Yang Jia hadn't moved. I turned back. Come on, I said. I thought he was having second thoughts about trusting Lee Sidong. His reasoning, however, was much weirder. You go in first. I'll follow in a bit. What's wrong? What's wrong? Look at the place. It's a love hotel, he hissed. Couples go in and out of there. If I walk in with another guy, how am I supposed to keep my reputation? People will talk. You're sick, I muttered, rolling my eyes. It's not sickness. It's about my principles as a man. Go on, go. I'll be up in a minute. I couldn't stand his sudden shyness, so I headed in alone. I found the room cards exactly where Lee Sidong said they'd be, hidden in a flower pot at the end of the hallway. Strangely, there were 2 cards, one for room 801 and another for 802. I messaged her to ask why. Take both, she replied. Go to 801 first. Don't go into 802 until I tell you. I entered 801. It was empty. It was the same room from a few nights ago, and the familiar, gaudy decor made me feel strangely at home. A few minutes later, Yang Jia snuck in, looking around like a thief. The interior seemed to impress him. Man, 2,000 yuan a night really buys a lot of atmosphere, he said, licking his lips. He walked over to a vending machine in the corner. Look at all these props. People really know how to play here. I watched him closely. You don't seem nervous at all. Our lives were literally on the line, yet he was acting like he was on vacation. What's there to be nervous about? Worst case, I die. He threw himself backward onto the massive birdcage-style bed, sprawling out. What do you think Lee Sidong wants? She's your girlfriend. If you don't know, how should I? He sat up, his expression turning curious. Do you really trust her that much? You just do whatever she says. I didn't answer. I didn't trust anyone completely, not even her. But I was new to this world. I was a blind man in a minefield, and for now, following her was safer than wandering aimlessly. Actually, I don't trust her, Yang Jia continued. But I trust you. I smiled. What if I'm lying to you too? He flopped back down, indifferent. Whatever. I'm tired of being alone. Better to have company than to spend all day doubting everyone. If I die, I die. I'm not the main character anyway. Living isn't that great. He stared up at the top of the birdcage bed, spotting a suspension hook. I wonder what kind of pose that's for. At 9:26 a.m., a new message arrived from Lee Sidong. Following her instructions, I opened the drawer under the TV and pulled out 2 black balaclavas. We both put them on. Yang Jia stared at his reflection in the bathroom mirror. Why do we have to look like bank robbers? What is she planning? Are we sticking this place up? I couldn't wrap my head around her logic. Maybe. Exciting, he grinned. I like it. A few minutes later, the next instruction came. Put the masks on and go to room 802. I asked her what we were supposed to do once we got there, but she didn't reply. It felt like a video game quest where the NPC refuses to give you the full objective until you finish the first step. We snuck out of the room, two masked figures looking suspicious as hell. The moment we stepped into the hall, we ran straight into a cleaning lady pushing her cart. She froze, staring at two masked teenagers emerging from a love hotel room. She slowly shook her head and kept walking. Young people these days, she muttered. Wilder than we ever were. Wait, ma'am. I can explain. Yang Jie started to chase after her, but I grabbed him by the collar and dragged him toward 802. Explain what? Just get in the room. I swiped the card. Beep. The layout of 802 was almost identical to 801. But as soon as we stepped inside, my heart stopped. There, lying on the birdcage bed, was a woman. She was dressed in professional office attire, her long legs wrapped in black silk stockings. She was blindfolded with a black cloth, her hands were tied behind her back, and her mouth was sealed with black tape. She wasn't just there. She had been kidnapped. Holy crap, Yang Jie whispered, his eyes widening. He let out a loud, wet slurp of saliva. She's gorgeous. Who is this? My head was spinning. Yang Jie walked right up to the edge of the bed, leaning in to get a closer look. The sound of him swallowing grew louder. The scene was surreal, a masked man standing over a bound woman in a love hotel. It looked like the beginning of a movie I shouldn't be watching. The woman on the bed heard us. She heard the footsteps, the heavy breathing, and Yang Jie's crude comment. Her body began to shake violently with terror. Yang Jie turned back to me, his eyes gleaming with a dark excitement. He clapped a hand on my shoulder. Xia, I gotta say, you found yourself a great girlfriend. I can't believe she arranged a feast like this for me. I felt a chill run down my spine. Just an hour ago, this good friend of mine said he wouldn't hurt anyone. Now, the hunger and the monster inside him were taking over. He looked like a dog in heat. I ignored him and began frantically searching the room, checking every corner and even the bathroom. I needed to know if we were truly alone with her. I searched the rest of the suite, checking the bathroom and every dark corner, but I found nothing. Li Sitong hadn't left any other surprises. I turned back to the bed, staring at the bound woman. I felt lost, my mind racing with questions, but I couldn't deny one thing. She was stunning. Her figure reminded me of Director Huang's wife. Huang Haifeng was the head of student affairs and Wang Fei's relative. He was in his 40s, but always looked impeccable, usually seen in sharp suits like some refined scholar. Half the female teachers at school had crushes on him. But the real star was his wife. She was a career woman in her 30s, gorgeous and incredibly sexy. Whenever she visited the school, every teenage boy in the building would hang out of the hallway windows just to catch a glimpse of her. I stepped closer to the bed. My breath hitched. The more I looked at her, the more familiar she became. I leaned in for a better look and then scrambled back in shock. What's wrong with you? Yang Jie asked, confused by my reaction. Look at her, I hissed. Look at her face. Yang Jie leaned over the woman, squinting at the features visible beneath the blindfold. His eyes went wide. A second later, he let out a sharp gasp. We looked at each other, completely baffled. Li Sitong hadn't just kidnapped a random woman. She had taken Director Huang's wife. Before I could process the insanity of the situation, my phone buzzed. It was a new message from Li Sitong. She told me to have Yang Jie lie down next to the woman and act as creepy as possible while I took photos to send to her. My fingers flew across the screen. Why did you kidnap Director Huang's wife? I demanded. Her reply came back instantly. Huang isn't a good man. He's one of us. Just do what I said. If we don't pull this off, we're all dead. I stared at the screen, my blood running cold. Director Huang was a monster? I looked at Yang Jie, who was reading over my shoulder. He didn't look surprised. Instead, he had a dark, knowing smile on his face. I think I know what she's planning, Yang Jie whispered. Then do it, I said. If she's right, we don't have a choice. Yang Jie started stripping off his shirt and climbed onto the bed. He tried to act like he was annoyed, muttering about having to sacrifice his dignity for our safety, but he couldn't hide the grin on his face. He didn't touch the woman, but he leaned in close, flashing a peace sign and making the most disgusting, lecherous face I had ever seen. I held up the phone, feeling like a director of a movie I wanted no part of. I found the right angles and snapped several photos. I picked the worst ones and sent them to Li Sitong. Okay, she replied. Wait for my signal. Do not touch her. I slumped onto the sofa and ripped the mask off my face. My head was spinning. On the bed, the woman was shaking uncontrollably, terrified of what the two men in the room were going to do to her. "Tell me what's going on," I said, looking at Yangjia. "Let's talk in the bathroom," he replied. He didn't want the woman to hear us. We stepped inside and shut the door. Yangjia lit a cigarette, the smoke curling in the small space. He confirmed that he already knew Director Huang was a monster. The reason I hadn't sensed it at school was because Huang was powerful. He could suppress his predatory aura to a range of only 4 meters. Li Sitong could only manage 5. That meant he was stronger than her. I nodded slowly. Everything started to click. Last night, Li Sitong had been lured away by a phone call right before Wang Fei attacked me. Wang Fei had been arrogant, smiling like he knew Li Sitong wouldn't be coming back to save me. He wasn't afraid of her because he knew she was already in a trap. Huang wanted to kill Li Sitong first, Yang Jie said, blowing a cloud of smoke. He failed, but he won't stop. And since we killed his nephew, Wang Fei, we're all on his hit list now. So she kidnapped his wife to use as a shield, I realized. Exactly. Huang is obsessed with his wife. As long as we have her, we have the upper hand. It's better to strike first than wait to be hunted down. I leaned against the sink, trying to breathe. The bathroom was getting thick with smoke, and I made Yang Jie put the cigarette out. He just laughed, rubbing his chin and looking back toward the door. He started talking about how beautiful the woman was again, his expression turning hungry and twisted. The transformation was changing him. He was always a bit of a creep, but now he looked like a predator in every sense of the word. I realized then that if I left him alone with her for even an hour, he might actually do something horrific. He wasn't just hungry for food anymore. "Stop being disgusting," I snapped. Yang Jie just straightened his collar, trying to look innocent. "What? I'm just appreciating beauty. Besides, we're gentlemen, right? We'd never take advantage of a lady in distress." He smiled, but there was nothing gentlemanly about the look in his eyes. If it had been any other man, Director Huang's wife would have been in serious trouble by now. I slapped my forehead in frustration. I told Yang Jie to stop being so damn vulgar. No decent person talks like that. He just gave me a faint, wicked smile, his eyes turning strange. He asked me if I could really say I didn't have feelings for a woman like her. He muttered something about how everyone loves a beautiful older woman. Just as I was about to snap back, Li Sitong's next set of instructions arrived. She told us to put on masks, get on the bed, and start a video call. We both knew our lives depended on this, so we didn't argue. We pulled on the black hoods and climbed onto the bed. I felt incredibly awkward. I won't lie. I'm a man, a legal adult. I had thoughts. Every man has a bit of a wandering eye, and there's nothing wrong with finding a beautiful woman attractive. It's only scary if you don't. But being here, wearing a hood like a lead actor in a low-budget adult film, made my skin crawl. I liked women, but I wasn't a freak. The video connected. Li Sitong wasn't on screen. Instead, I saw a man in a black suit standing a few meters away, looking absolutely frantic. It was Director Huang. He saw the image on the screen and lunged for the phone, but the person holding it pulled back quickly. They were somewhere in the outskirts of the city. I couldn't see Li Sitong, but I heard her voice behind the camera. She told him calmly that since he tried to kill her first, it was only fair she used dirty tactics to survive. She didn't care about being honorable. She only cared about winning. "Let my wife go? Let her go," Huang Haifeng screamed. His eyes turned a deep crimson, and his face flushed dark red with rage. He threatened to kill her, but Li Sitong didn't flinch. She admitted she might not be his match in a fight, but she wasn't afraid to die. She told him he could torture her all he wanted, but she promised his wife would suffer a much worse fate in the process. Then, she gave us the order. She told us to start stripping the clothes off Director Huang's wife, one piece at a time. Huang let out a guttural roar, but Li Sitong just told us that once the call ended, we could do whatever we wanted with her. If she didn't call us back, the woman was ours to dispose of. It was clear she was trying to force a compromise. Everything depended on how much Huang actually cared for his wife. One thing was certain. Li Sitong really wasn't afraid of death. The call ended. I looked at Yang Jie. The fire in his eyes was burning hotter than ever. He was staring at the woman on the bed, practically drooling. He told me I'd picked a great girlfriend. thanking me for sharing such a good deal with him. The woman had heard everything. She started struggling like a trapped animal, making muffled sobbing sounds. Her fear only seemed to make Yang Jie more excited. He reached out, his hand trembling as he went for the buttons on her red silk shirt. I moved faster. My hand clamped down on his wrist with a grip like iron. Yang Jie looked up at me, his eyes bloodshot under the black hood. He asked me what I was doing. He argued that we had to do this to stay alive. I told him that staying alive didn't require this. The goal was just to make Director Huang panic. He couldn't see what we were actually doing now that the camera was off. I couldn't do it. If I did, I'd be a monster. I hadn't eaten a human yet, so I could still claim to be a man. If I did this, I'd be worse than a beast. Yang Jie's voice was hoarse. He told me he understood, but argued we should be thorough. He suggested I just sit in the corner while he handled it. I didn't argue. I swung my hand and slapped him across the face. He froze. Before he could react, I slapped him again, even harder. The force nearly sent him flying off the bed. I told him to wake up. I didn't entirely blame him. The mutation was twisting his personality, just like it did to Li Sitong and Wang Fei. The power of the demon seed was addictive and corrupting. After the 2 slaps, the fire in his eyes started to fade. I hit him a 3rd time, and the last of that twisted hunger vanished. He looked like a child who had just realized he'd done something horrific. He scrambled off the bed, ripped off his mask, and ran into the bathroom to splash cold water on his face. I sighed. I was lucky I wasn't a real monster, or I might have lost myself too. When Yang Jie came out, he kept his head down, unable to look at me. He was clearly ashamed. He'd acted like a dog in heat in front of his best friend, and he looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. He was lucky I'd snapped him out of it before he did something unforgivable. He wouldn't even glance at the woman on the bed anymore. I stepped down and patted his shoulder. I told him not to be so hard on himself. It wasn't his true nature. It was the power changing him. Everyone's personality shifts when they turn. He just got unlucky that his shift turned him into a creep. Yang Jie stayed silent, his head hanging low. He told me he'd always hated guys like that, and now he was becoming one. He could resist the hunger for flesh, even when he was starving, but he had no defense against a beautiful woman. He was terrified that one day he wouldn't be able to stop himself. I looked at him, realizing he still wanted to be human. I told him it was hard to say what would happen, but maybe he could try changing his tastes. I suggested that if he shifted his interests, no woman would ever get hurt by him again. Yang Jie made a face, swearing he'd never be interested in men. I shook my head. I told him that wasn't what I meant. I suggested maybe he try looking at horses or cows instead. I was dead serious with my advice, but Yang Jie just stared at me like I'd grown a second head. He opened his mouth, closed it, and then repeated the process a few times before finally finding his voice. He told me he always thought I was a sophisticated, cultured guy. He asked how a human being could even say something like that. Then he paused, remembering I wasn't exactly a normal human anymore. Still, compared to him, I seemed perfectly fine. It hit him then that he hadn't actually noticed any major changes in my personality. He wondered if it was because I'd only been a monster for a short time. Just as he was about to ask me if I felt different, the electronic lock on the door beeped. The handle turned. We traded a sharp look, and Yang Jie scrambled to pull his mask back on. We both stared at the door, our instincts screaming. Whoever was coming in didn't feel like one of us. There was no monster aura. I wondered if it was just hotel staff, but they had a key card. The door swung open, and a figure dressed in black with a face mask stepped inside. The moment they were through, they slammed the door and clicked the lock. My mind went blank for a second. The outfit, the cold eyes, it was the exact same hunter I'd encountered at the villa the other night. The hunter didn't waste words. Her icy gaze swept over the woman on the bed before landing on the two of us in our ridiculous masks. Yang Jie stammered out a "Who are you?" but his only answer was a flash of blue light. The woman reached out, and a curved blade glowing with a faint blue mist appeared in her hand out of thin air. It looked like she had some kind of spatial ability. Same clothes, same blade. It was definitely her. She lunged. Yang Jie realized she was a hunter a second too late, barely dodging the blade aimed at his throat. He escaped the first strike, but she was fast. Too fast. She backed him against the wall, and before he could move, she slashed downward. The blade bit deep into his shoulder. Yang Jie didn't even have time to scream before the next strike aimed straight for his heart. In a panic, his arms transformed into dark purple tentacles, wrapping around the blade. He squeezed with everything he had, trying to pin the weapon down. He thought he had her. But I saw the hunter's eyes. There was a playful, mocking glint in them. Suddenly, the blue blade vanished. Yang Jie's tentacles squeezed empty air, his momentum throwing him off balance. A second later, the blade reappeared in the hunter's hand, the tip inches from Yang Jie's throat. He couldn't react in time. He was a dead man. "Stop!" I yelled. The blade froze. It was exactly 0.01 centimeters from his skin. Yang Jie was pressed flat against the wall, sweat pouring down his face, his chest heaving. He swallowed hard, and his Adam's apple bobbed against the sharp point. A tiny red line appeared, but before blood could even flow, the freezing energy from the blade turned the wound into ice. The hunter slowly turned her head toward me, her hand still steady, keeping the knife at Yang Jie's throat. I was standing by the bed. My arm was fully transformed, my claws wrapped tightly around the throat of Director Huang's wife. When the hunter first walked in, I thought we were finished. I'd seen her fight before. She'd lost to Li Sitong the other night, but that was only because the environment favored the monsters. In a fair fight, I wasn't sure who would win. Against me and Yang Jie, she could have ended us in 10 moves. I couldn't figure out why a hunter would be here. Even if they were desperate for experience points, coming to the Dreamland Hotel in broad daylight was suicide. This place was a hive. At night, there were hundreds of monsters here. Even now, there were dozens. No hunter was stupid enough to kick the hornet's nest like this. Unless she wasn't here for us. She was here for the woman on the bed. The room went silent. I could hear 3 different heartbeats, all at different rhythms. I realized I was right. She wanted the woman. If I wanted to negotiate, I had to keep my grip tight. I couldn't outfight her, so I had to outsmart her. The woman in my grip was whimpering, terrified of the monstrous hand around her neck. Meanwhile, the hunter was cursing herself for being careless and letting me grab her sister. She should have killed me first. She recognized me from the villa. And Yang Jie, even with a knife at his throat, he was busy thinking the hunter sounded like a woman and wondering if dying by her hand would be a poetic way to go. "Let her go," the woman in black said, her voice cold. "I'll let you two live." I wasn't falling for that. We were in danger, sure, but she was in a worse spot. I should be the one saying that. I countered. "We might not be your match, but there are dozens of monsters in this building. If they find out a hunter is here, you're not walking out alive." She went quiet for a moment, calculating. "Fine. We exchange hostages. At the same time." "No," I said instantly. "Simultaneous exchange doesn't work for us. You'll just kill us both to cover your tracks once you're safe. That's not happening." "Then what do you want?" "Release him first." "No way," she snapped. She knew she was in a trap. Coming here during the day was a desperate move, but she couldn't wait another minute to save her sister. She'd seen the security footage and thought there were only 2 monsters to deal with. She expected to kill us and leave. She didn't expect me to be smart enough to grab a shield instead of trying to fight. I was about to make another demand when my phone buzzed on the bed. I glanced down. No name, just a number. It was Li Sitong. "I need to take this," I said, my voice low and steady. "Don't move." "Don't you dare," the hunter growled, pressing the blade harder against Yang Jie's neck. "I have to take it," I said, staring her right in the eyes. "If you kill him, go ahead. But I promise you, if he dies, neither you nor this woman are leaving this room." I kept my hand clamped tight around Director Huang's wife's throat. With my other hand, I reached slowly for my buzzing phone. The woman in black didn't move. She watched me like a hawk, but she stayed still. I flipped the phone open. Li Sitong's voice came through, cold and sharp as a razor. "Eat the woman. Don't leave a single trace behind. If you can't stomach it, let Yang Jie do it." "How's your situation?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. "It's handled," she replied. "It's over. I'll be there soon." Her tone told me everything I needed to know. Director Huang was likely dead. "All right," I said. "Talk soon." I hung up. I didn't tell her about the hunter standing 3 feet away from me. If I pushed this woman into a corner, she'd stop caring about survival and just try to take us all down with her. I needed to give her a way out, a sliver of hope so she wouldn't blow the whole place sky high. I looked at the woman in black. I have a compromise. Put the knife away. All four of us walk out of this room together. We walk out of the hotel together. No, she snapped. She didn't trust it. It's the only way, I said, my voice turning stern. We walk out as a group. If we try anything, you kill Yangjia instantly. But if you try anything, you'll never make it out of the lobby alive. Once we hit the street, there are people everywhere. We'll be safe, and you'll be safe. She went silent, weighing the risks. Tell me one thing first, she said. Why did you grab her? It wasn't just to eat her. Why her? No comment, I replied. She exhaled sharply. Fine. We do it your way. She didn't have a choice. Every minute she spent in this monster-infested hotel, the noose tightened around her neck. If another one of us smelled her, she was finished. The walk down was surreal. Two teenage boys in hoodies, a woman wrapped in layers, and another woman with a black blindfold over her eyes. We looked like a freak show. When we reached the lobby, every eye turned toward us. The two monsters at the front desk stared, their expressions a mix of confusion and suspicion. They probably thought we were leaving after filming some twisted underground movie. The moment we stepped through the front doors and felt the rush of the city street, everyone relaxed. In broad daylight, surrounded by crowds and traffic, neither side dared to make a move. I gave Director Huang's wife a firm shove toward the woman in black. Go. You're free. The hunter didn't say a word. She hailed a taxi, pulled her sister inside, and sped off into the traffic. As soon as they were safe, the wife tore off her blindfold. She looked at the muffled figure beside her. Even with the mask and hood, she knew. Your brother-in-law, the wife whispered, her voice trembling. He might be in danger. The woman in black just shook her head. She signaled for her sister to stay quiet until they were miles away. Back in the hotel room, Yang Jia flopped onto the bed, laughing breathlessly. That was intense. A hunter. An actual hunter. I've only heard stories, but man, seeing one in the flesh? That was a rush. He was buzzing with adrenaline, but the excitement didn't last. Suddenly, his face went pale. He sucked in a sharp breath and curled up, cold sweat beading on his forehead. I realized then that he'd been hiding it. He'd been stabbed. I pulled back his jacket and saw a jagged wound stretching 20 centimeters across his chest. Strangely, there was hardly any blood. The frost from that curved blade was so intense, it had flash-frozen the wound. A line of red ice crystals, looking like raw rubies, clung to the gash. But as the frost began to melt, the blood started to pulse outward, threatening to break through. Yang Jia gritted his teeth and stood up. With my help, he tore a bedsheet into strips and bound the wound tight. I'm fine, he muttered, waving me off. It's just a scratch. I looked at the gore on the sheet. For a human, that was a death sentence. But for us, it was a week of soreness and a few days of healing. By next Sunday, there wouldn't even be a scar. Yang Jia slumped onto the sofa and lit a cigarette, his hands shaking slightly. He acted tough, but I could tell he'd been terrified. It's one thing to say you aren't afraid to die. It's another thing to feel the cold steel against your throat. That hunter risked everything to save that woman, I mused aloud. Their relationship has to be close. Yang Jia looked at me with a wicked grin. You mean like a secret lover thing? I rolled my eyes. Can you be normal for 5 seconds? I'm talking about family. My bad, he said, rubbing his temples. My brain just goes to the gutter lately. I don't know why I've become such a degenerate. Focus, I said. She came here in broad daylight. She's likely a relative. A sister, maybe. Yang Jia snapped his fingers. Wait, I remember now. Director Huang's wife has a younger sister. She's really pretty. She came to the school a few months ago to find him. I think her name was Zhou something. She's a senior at the second high school. I nodded. It made sense. I had a vague memory of seeing a girl like that months ago. The height and build matched the woman in black perfectly. This info is worth 10 million yuan, Yang Jia said, standing up excitedly. There are plenty of rich monsters who would pay a fortune for the identity of a hunter. I let out a dry laugh. Money? You think money matters anymore? The world is held together by a thread. Once the order collapses, gold will be worth less than a kitchen knife. Yang Jie stroked his chin, a devious glint in his eyes. I have a better idea. We call her up and say, "Hey, beautiful, you wouldn't want people knowing you're a hunter, would you? So if you just—" I didn't let him finish. I stood up and punched him right in the back of the head. Yang Jie let out a sharp cry of pain. He crouched down, clutching the back of his head and hissing through his teeth. What was that for? I'm an injured man. Why are you hitting me? You know why? I snapped. Try to stay sane for a second. You're already losing yourself to the monster inside. Yang Jie sighed, his shoulders slumping in defeat. What do you want from me? It was just a subconscious thought. I can't control it. Half an hour later, my phone buzzed. It was Li Sitong. She told me to open the door. When I let her in, something felt different. There was an aura around her, a weight to her presence that wasn't there before. She felt stronger, much stronger. I wondered if she had already finished off Director Huang. It seemed likely. She scanned the room, her eyes narrowing at how clean everything was. There was hardly a scent of blood in the air. Where is Director Huang's wife? She asked, her voice cold. I told you to eat her. We let her go, I said. Li Sitong stared at me like I had lost my mind. What? I gave her to you as a meal, and you just let her walk? Are you trying to starve yourself to death? Someone rescued her, I explained. I laid out everything that had happened. The woman in black, the silent confrontation, and the escape. As I spoke, a flicker of interest lit up Li Sitong's eyes. Interesting. So the awakened one from the villa showed up again. She paced the room, her mind working fast. He must have a deep connection with the director's wife. We could have used her to find him. She paused, shaking her head. But it's too late now. If we figured that out, he definitely did too. He's probably moved her far away from Xinghe City by now. What about Director Huang? I asked. Dead, she replied flatly. He died screaming. He put up a hell of a fight, more than I expected. He actually managed to injure me. She sat on the edge of the bed, a mocking glint in her eyes. But he was good nourishment, high nutritional value. My wounds are already healed. She sighed, though there was no pity in it. It's a shame. He could have gone far. But he had a weakness. Luckily for us, he did. Otherwise, we never would have pinned him down. I didn't feel much about the director's death. I had known it was coming since last night. That phone call you got yesterday, the one that pulled you away. That was his trap, wasn't it? Yes, she said. That's why I had to move against him. Once he made his play, I couldn't let him live. But it's over now. We're safe. For now. She looked at the bed, then back at me, a smirk playing on her lips. So, did you have your way with that woman before she was rescued? No, I said firmly. I didn't touch her. Not even a finger. Really? Not interested. I wasn't, I said. And besides, if I touched her, you'd probably eat me next. Ask Yang Jie if you don't believe me. Li Sitong stood up. I believe you. And for the record, I wouldn't care if you did. I'd just have to castrate you. She headed for the door. Go home and get some sleep. I'll take you both out hunting tonight. Not tonight, I said. My mom is coming back. I have to pick her up. Li Sitong circled me slowly, her eyes searching mine. You don't look very hungry. Did you go behind my back and hunt last night? No. Yang Jie had some leftovers. He shared them with me. It's enough to keep the hunger at bay for now. She didn't push it. Fine. Forget tonight. I have other things to handle anyway. Go rest. I'll contact you in the morning. Back at my place, Yang Jie tended to his wounds. It had only been an hour, but they were already starting to knit back together. He sat on the sofa, buried in his phone, flirting aggressively with girls online. I didn't stop him. This was his way of coping, his way of feeling human while he waited for his next meal. The hunger started to crawl back into my stomach. It had been a long time since I'd actually eaten. I thought about buying a live chicken, but with Yang Jie there, it was too risky. I couldn't risk being seen by anyone else, either. I gritted my teeth and forced myself to endure it. At 8 p.m., my mom called. She had cleared customs at the airport and gave me an address for dinner. Yang Jie decided to head out too. He had managed to land a date with a local influencer, mostly by throwing money around. He dropped over 60,000 yuan on her live stream without blinking. Money was losing its meaning. In a world teetering on the edge of collapse, 50,000 yuan wouldn't buy a loaf of bread soon. I had even helped him spend some of it, watching the girl on the screen call us big brothers with a sugary sweet voice. It felt ridiculous, but at least the money was good for something while it still had value. We split up at the crossroads. I took a cab to the Jinlan Western restaurant. I spotted my mom immediately. She was sitting by the window, waving me over. But she wasn't alone. A man in a sharp suit sat across from her. Jiangxia, over here, she called out. I smiled and started walking toward them. But as I got closer, the smile froze on my face. My skin prickled. My instinct screamed. It was the scent of a predator, one of my own kind. My mother is a bridge engineer. She's smart, hardworking, and has spent a decade building a career in a massive firm. She's a beautiful woman for her age, and since her divorce from my father, she's had plenty of suitors. I've always stayed out of her love life. I wanted her to be happy. I wanted her to find someone who deserved her. Over the last 3 years, I'd seen her go on plenty of dates, but the man sitting there was different. He was polished. His blue suit was perfectly tailored. He wore a gold Rolex and expensive glasses that screamed intellectual. On paper, he was the perfect catch. For a second, I was impressed by my mom's taste. But then the aura hit me. A heavy, suffocating wave of monster energy. I stopped in my tracks. I couldn't tell where it was coming from. Was it the man? Or was it my mother? I forced my feet to move, heart hammering against my ribs. As I reached the table, the scent sharpened. It was him. The man. I felt a wave of relief that it wasn't my mom, but it was immediately replaced by a cold, sharp dread. Was he here because he loved her? Or was he just sitting across from his next meal? Mom, I said, breaking the silence. I turned my gaze toward the man. I kept my expression natural, masking the internal alarm bells ringing in my head. And this is... Hello, Jiangxia. The man stood up politely. He didn't have an ounce of pretension. He extended a hand for a shake, a friendly smile on his face. Let me introduce myself. My name is Chen Kai. My English name is Jace. Nice to meet you, I replied. He didn't show any hostility. In fact, he was incredibly humble and well-mannered. I knew I couldn't be rude. Until I knew his true intentions, picking a fight would be stupid. I've heard so much about you from your mother, Chen Kai said, his voice smooth and full of charm. Seeing you now, you really are a handsome young man. I bet the girls at school are constantly chasing you. He was good. He spoke with perfect poise, adding just enough flattery to seem sincere. But I knew better. No matter how well he performed, it was just a mask for the world. I had felt his aura from 5 meters away. Standing this close, there was no doubt. He was one of us. His strength felt equal to Li Xidong's, which meant he had claimed just as many victims, maybe more. Li Xidong was a divergent. She preferred hunting our own kind over humans. She'd told me that one monster provided far more nutrition than several humans combined. It was efficient. If this man wasn't a divergent, then the sheer number of humans he must have consumed to reach this power level was staggering. Either way, he was dangerous. My mother beamed, seeing us get along so well. Since it's our first time meeting, I prepared a small gift, Chen Kai said. He handed over a beautifully wrapped rectangular box. I hope you like it. I did the polite dance, declining at first like a kid refusing a red envelope at New Year's. Eventually, I reluctantly accepted it. At his urging, I opened the box. Inside were 3 concert tickets. Even though I wasn't into celebrities, I recognized the name immediately. They were front-row seats for a legendary domestic superstar. The last time he performed, scalpers were selling these seats for over 30,000 yuan each. 3 tickets. Nearly 100,000 yuan in value. It was the most expensive gift I'd ever received. This is too much, I said. I can't take this. Chen Kai pushed the box back toward me. Please, take them. A business partner gave them to me a while ago. I prefer quiet places, so they'd be wasted on me. Better to give them to young people like you. They aren't all for you, though. 2 are for you and a friend, and the 3rd is for your sister. I thanked him and set the box aside, sitting down next to my mom. Through our brief conversation, I learned his story. He lived in Xinghe City now, but had spent years working abroad as an executive for a listed company. He was divorced with a daughter living overseas. He'd just turned 40, making him slightly younger than my mom. A few months ago, he quit his job to start his own business here. He had some ongoing projects with my mom's construction firm. Their meet cute sounded like something out of a movie. My mom was leaving work late after overtime and got cornered by some drunk business associates. Shinkai happened to be passing by and stepped in to help. They ran into each other again the next day for a meeting, and things developed from there. They claimed to be just friends, but you don't give a friend's son a 100,000 yuan gift for no reason. He had an agenda. However, looking at my mom's face, she seemed to believe the friendship was genuine. I watched as Shinkai raised his wine glass to toast with her. My pupils contracted. He took a sip, expressionless, and set the glass down. I started a timer in my head. 7 minutes passed. Then 8. He showed no signs of discomfort. He finished the glass. Another 8 minutes went by. After half a second glass, he finally stood up and headed for the restroom. I followed him immediately. In the last stall of the restroom, I heard him. He was retching violently, sounding like he was trying to spit out his own internal organs. After a few minutes, the noise subsided. Shinkai walked out of the stall and saw me. He didn't look surprised. He went to the sink, rinsed his mouth, washed his face, and began adjusting his suit in the mirror. "I like wine," he said softly. "I liked it before, and I like it now. Before, I liked the mental satisfaction it gave me. Now, I like the feeling of life it brings after it goes down." He looked at his reflection. "Every extra minute I can hold it down gives me a sense of achievement." I leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "Another psycho. Someone with your tolerance for alcohol must be rare," I said dryly. "I knew someone with a higher tolerance," Shinkai replied. "He could handle the discomfort much better than me. Unfortunately, he's dead, killed by your hands." My heart skipped a beat. "What?" I looked at him, confused. How did he know about me? Who was he talking about? "Who else?" Shinkai asked, adjusting his tie. "Was there anyone else you killed today besides the one named Huang?" I froze. Huang, the man from the construction site. He was a talented man. Shinkai continued, staring into the mirror. His mimicry ability was among the best I've seen. I thought if he had enough time to grow, he'd be one of the strongest of our kind. It's a shame. I took a step back, my muscles tensing. Shinkai laughed. "Don't be so nervous. I didn't say I was going to avenge him. I actually wanted to kill him myself. If you hadn't done it, I would have stepped in a few days from now. But you killed him, and you did it so cleanly. It surprised me. Something I found difficult to manage was handled by a bunch of kids." He paused, then corrected himself. "Sorry, poor choice of words. People like us shouldn't be judged by age." "I didn't kill him," I muttered. "Don't be modest. Your little girlfriend already told me everything. You work together. Li sit on." I hissed. Shinkai took a deep breath, the alcohol clearly still ravaging his system. "She spoke to me today. She wants you to join us." To be honest, I usually don't take in anyone who hasn't completed their first evolution. But you've actually made me interested. He told me about what happened with you, and that awakened at the hotel. I have to say, I really admire how you handled it. Most people would have panicked, but you analyzed the situation and found a way out in seconds. I like your intelligence. I stared at Shinkai, my voice low and dangerous. "I want to know why you're getting close to my mother." He didn't blink. "We're just ordinary friends. Even if we aren't normal humans, we still have the right to make friends, don't we?" "I don't think your motives are that simple," I countered. Shinkai smiled thinly. "You're underestimating me. With my strength, I can hunt anywhere I want. I don't need to spend weeks befriending someone just to satisfy my appetite. Maybe you just have some sick, specific hobby," I spat back. I didn't trust him for a second. Every monster I'd met, especially the strong ones, had something broken inside them. I couldn't let my mom be around someone like him. Shinkai shook his head. "Your mother is a soulmate, in a way. She loves history. So do I. We have a lot to talk about. I actually want our friendship to last, which is why I'll make sure she's protected. You have nothing to worry about. But honestly, it might be better if you stayed away from her." He laughed and clapped a hand on my shoulder. "You might have the right to stop your mother from making friends, but you can't stop me. I could just tell her what you are," I threatened. He leaned in. "And how would you make her believe that? By showing her your mutated form? By showing her that her own son is a monster? You'd terrify her until she had a mental breakdown. She's not part of this world. Why drag her into it?" "At least she'd know the world is dangerous," I argued. "So what?" Shinkai asked. "Danger exists whether you know about it or not. Does knowing the truth help a normal person avoid a crisis? Instead of making her live every day in fear, let her have some peace. If you're strong enough, you won't need to worry about protecting her. I stayed silent. I knew he was right. Without enough power, I had no right to negotiate. If I threatened him now, I'd just be a joke. Let's go back out, Chen Kai said, turning toward the door. Don't keep your mother waiting. I'll see you tomorrow. I got home around 10:30 p.m. My mind was a mess. I kept debating whether to tell my mom the truth. But how? Like Chen Kai said, I couldn't just transform in front of her. Was knowing the truth even good for her? I pulled out my phone and messaged Li Sitong and Yang Jie to see how they handled their families. Li Sitong replied almost instantly. She hadn't told her parents anything. Her reasoning was cold and simple. I don't know if my parents are awakened hunters. If they found out I'm a monster, they might kill me to save the world. Better to let things be. That was classically Sitong. Yang Jie felt the same way. My dad and grandparents are old. There's no point in making them live in fear. They stay in the neighborhood anyway. Most monsters don't target the elderly. Telling them wouldn't make them believe me unless I showed them my monster side, and that would probably kill them from the shock. Their advice was the same. It's up to you. I sat on the sofa for a long time. I finally decided I had to tell her. Even if she couldn't sleep for days, even if she lived in constant anxiety, it was better than being blind to the shadows. I wasn't strong enough to guarantee her safety yet. If she knew the truth, she could at least be careful. I was more afraid of her wandering into danger than I was of her being scared. I would tell her the world was changing, but I wouldn't show her my arm. I wouldn't let her know her son was a freak. The world being dangerous was one thing. Her son being a monster was a blow she might not survive. I started rehearsing the words in my head. But before I could speak, my mom sat down across from me. She looked at me with an intensity one hadn't seen before. "Xia Xia," she said softly. "Do you know something?" I blinked, confused. Something felt wrong. She didn't wait for me to answer. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small glass vial. "Drink this," she commanded. My pupils shrank. The world was changing too fast. In just a few days, 3 people I knew, Su Kuan, Wang Fei, and the Dean Huang Haifeng, were gone. It felt like the world was no longer about people, but about hunters and prey. Kill or be killed. I was prepared to change my relationship with everyone. I was ready to be a predator or a victim, but I was never prepared for my relationship with my family to change. I hadn't even let myself imagine it.